There's no time.
The time is
13
o'clock.
Hey, it's episode 184.
Yeah, this guy here, man, Wayne Gacy. What a dickhead.
We're finally getting around to, like I said, I think we started out the show like with all these kind of lesser known crimes and like lesser known serial killers, and now we're having to like circle back and like doing all these like big well known ones.
Well, we had a small subscriber base, and in order to get any kind of notoriety in the algorithms, we were going for rare cases first.
That's what I figured. I figured I would just talk about.
Although it's probably fucking stupid. It was probably smarter to go for the big cases that would probably move us up in the algorithms for all I know.
Well, I don't know, because that's the thing. It's like, yeah, you can do that, but you and like everyone and their mother has done them. Yeah. So
I don't know how it worked out. We just the show just evolved normally. Just kind of naturally. Yeah, I mean, normally. Nothing's normal about this. Just naturally. Yeah, just naturally.
Yeah, nothing's normal about you, Thomas.
Yeah, there's definitely nothing normal about nature. Shit ain't fucking normal there. All right, so
Wayne Gacy is also not normal.
No, fucking no.
Was also not normal.
This dude here,
he has deceased. He is deceased.
Yeah, he's a real shit.
Thankfully.
We're going to talk about him.
Yeah, this guy, fucking hell. 33 murders that they know of. Mm-hmm. That was all he admitted to.
Young guys. He liked young guys.
And boys. Some of them were like teenage boys.
Yeah.
And yeah, really special. And he was kind of one of those guys that no one suspected a thing because everyone just thought he was totally rad.
Yeah, he had a construction company and, was making some money, and he dressed up as a clown and shit. I think this is, I think that's now a red flag if you dress up as a clown.
Well, now it is because of this douche.
Because of this dude, yeah.
That's probably why. Yeah. I wonder if, like,
Single-handedly fucked up the clown
That's
industry.
what I mean. That's like, I would love to see, has anybody written a book or an essay or anything like that about people that were like clowns, like at clown college and everything like that, and if after Wayne Gacy got arrested and they found out about him, did they be like, fuck?
Yeah, I don't know.
You have just ruined our whole entire livelihood. Now we can't go to children's birthday parties anymore because everyone thinks we're going to be murder clowns.
Yeah.
Because this was before Stephen King's It came out.
Yeah, and his character was called Pogo. Pogo the clown.
He had one called Patches, too.
Patches, too?
Which I don't know how different that one was than... Yeah. It's funny because I was watching a documentary. I watched like a whole bunch of documentaries about this dude. And like, apparently people that are like, went to clown college and are like really into that kind of stuff, they said, well, the way that he did his Pogo clown makeup with the pointy mouth kind of, it's like, yeah, we would never do that. It's like clowns always use like soft edges, like round edges, because it's not as terrifying.
Yeah.
So even they know that's scary.
What he'd do is he'd start hanging out with you, and if you were a cute guy and he wanted your booty, he'd sit there and fucking show you magic tricks with handcuffs.
Yeah.
Because he could escape from handcuffs. And then he'd teach you how to do it or whatever, and then he'd put them on you, and you couldn't get out. Well, it's because he switched the handcuffs.
Yep.
He put real handcuffs on you instead of fake handcuffs. And once those handcuffs were on you, oh man. Yeah. You were a goner. You were a goner. Yeah. And this dude was like a brutal rapist, man. He'd put anything up in your booty, evidently.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, and
and the weird thing, like I said, the weirdest thing about him, the thing that always strikes me as being the weirdest thing about him is that no one suspected anything. Yeah. No one suspected anything. He was just like a normal dude. It's like, oh, he was like all into the fucking, he was in the JCs and he was like fucking, and you know what I mean? He had a wife and kids and, you know what I mean?
He was kind of a short, stocky guy and,
having barbecues.
He kind of carried himself kind of like a toughie, like he was a tough guy, kind of had kind of a tough accent a certain way, from what I remember hearing, how his voice. And as soon as he got those handcuffs on you, you became fucking sissy because this dude was like a power top. You know what I'm talking about? There's like a top and a bottom, but he was like, this dude was super fucking dominant.
Yeah.
He was going to show you what a sissy you were.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that probably stemmed from his childhood.
Yeah.
Which we'll talk about momentarily.
So he was fucking, what do you call it? Sadistic. To do with sadistic.
Yeah. And like I said,
he needed his ass whipped.
He needed
his ass killed. Is what he needed. That's what should have happened to this dude.
And sadly, it's unfortunate that, I mean, during the time that he was committing these crimes in the early to late 1970s, it seemed like, even though he had been arrested in his early days, like before he killed anyone, for various like sexual transgressions, various sexual assaults and things like that, no one really thought anything about it. Like, you know what I mean? No one stopped him. No one's like, nowadays, if you like raped a boy, like that, you would be on a sexual predator list like forever. And like everywhere you went, everyone would know. But it's like back in the 70s, they didn't keep track of that shit. You just, you know, they didn't know until they checked like later, like way later on. And the shitty thing too was that since he was targeting, you know, teenage boys, the cops had a real kind of like laid back attitude. It's like, teenage boys, they run away all the time. Yeah. He'll be back.
I think part of the problem is that they...
no, he won't.
Most of these cops didn't know anything about serial offenders. They didn't even have a concept of a serial offender. They weren't really trained to see crime that way. They were trained to see crime as an individual occurrence. Yeah. And how would the court systems, how would they interpret this individual occurrence? You know what I mean? So... if they couldn't get you on one thing, then it was gone. Yeah. Later on, you did it again. If they couldn't get you on that, then it was just gone. There wasn't a system to keep track of how many times you got away with something.
Yeah. Because, I mean, like you said, it's the early 70s, and if you've seen, like, fucking Mindhunter and all that kind of stuff, this was the very infancy of, like, the serial killer, you know, the FBI, like, kind of establishing their serial killer, like, you know, protocol. They didn't really know much about it at the time.
During that era, you know, he would have had a much better chance probably being caught if he was in more of a rural area. Because local sheriffs were the ones that were really kind of more apt to who the... they're more apt to figure out who the habitual offenders were. Yeah. Because they personally knew the people. Right. So they could keep an eye on them, you know. But if you were in a suburban or an urban area, man, there was just nobody there to really keep track of these people.
Yeah, this was Chicago, kind of like a big city.
Yeah, there's no way to keep track of a guy. Yeah. There's millions of them out there. A local sheriff might know, I know who did that. That's that.
Yeah, let's go to what's-his-name's house.
Yeah, you know, and then go after him. You know.
Hey, we heard about this shit that happened that sounds like some shit that you would do.
Sounds like stuff that you do. Yeah, right.
Yeah, if that had been done, like I said, hindsight's 20/20. Mm-hmm. But had that been done in this case, maybe a lot of people would still be alive. That's all I'm saying. But, you know, what are you going to do?
Any shout-outs?
Yes. I have one shout-out. One of our patrons, Fade, has increased his support this week. Or her support. I'm not really sure if it's... I mean,
Fade Routha? Remember Fade Routha from Dune?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right. Okay, yeah. So, thank you.
And then I will send you, Fade. My lovely Fade.
That's a cool name, actually.
Yeah.
But yeah, so thank you very much for that. I mean, they were already giving, like, a lot, and then they gave, like, a little bit more, and that's, like, really cool. But yeah, so we have a Patreon, you know, just in case. You need to go over there. And
if you guys want to support the show, please hit us up on Patreon.
Yeah, that would be really rad. Also, just in the mail today, I got this DVD right here. It is Twilight Zone, the movie.
That's right.
Guys.
Yeah, that's a Korean edition.
It is. There's Korean all over it.
Yeah,
I am very, very excited to watch this. This was one of my very favorite movies when I was younger. I had it on VHS. I recorded it from HBO or Cinemax or whatever. And I saw it probably about 50,000 times. Yeah. Approximately. So we will probably be reviewing that in a week or two. We still have to do 30 Days of Night.
I've never seen it.
You have never seen
I've never seen it, no.
The movie.
No. And that's a Korean edition because Korea loves fucking classic American movies. So they'll order a batch of them every now and then. The ones that don't sell will end up coming back to the U.S. market. Yeah. Twilight Zone. I've seen a lot of stuff from special editions from Korea.
You ever had like the whole scene in the car with like Dan Aykroyd and stuff? You want to see something really scary? You never saw that? Oh, shit. No. All right, we're going to watch this fucking later. Right. Like after we finish recording the show. All right, so let's start talking about fucking John Wayne Gacy.
Yeah, this dude.
One of the most prolific serial killers. Like I said, they know that he killed 33. Most of them he buried just in the crawl space under his house.
Yeah, I can't believe he kept
And it was just there for a long time and nobody knew.
I don't know how he kept the smell down. He must have had them wrapped.
You
up
know
in
what he
plastic.
said? It's like when anybody like complained about it, because
Yeah.
some people did, because he had like big fucking. This is like some, Edgar Allan Poe like Telltale Heart shit right here.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, so he has all these people like buried in his fucking crawl space, and he has like big fucking themed barbecues and shit at his fucking house. Like, oh,
Yeah.
it's a Hawaiian luau, ooh, it's
Right.
a Western barbecue or whatever. And it's like he has people come over there, and every now and then like somebody would be like, man, your house kind of smells, and he would say, oh yeah, well, the crawl space, it's like there's like so much moisture down there. Or he would like have some fucking story about like a sewer line breaking or some shit like that, even though obviously moisture and decomposing bodies,
They have their own
that's
smell.
two different smells. So but no
Was
one
he even putting lye on them?
lime, he put
lime?
lime on there, but it clearly wasn't working all that
Yeah.
good, because people still did like smell
That might
it
have
in there.
changed the smell enough to where
Maybe
you really
it
couldn't
did.
tell what it was.
Because some people did comment on it at the time, but you wouldn't think that like this neighbor, who by all accounts was like just a cool guy,
Yeah,
neighborhood guy.
I grew up knowing what the damn smell of a rotten body smelled like. I mean, back on the railroad tracks with the damn dead dogs, we used to find
Well,
it.
yeah. That's a
fucking-
very distinctive odor.
As a 10-year-old boy, we could sniff them out miles away. Yeah, there's one of them dead up there. Let's go find. I'm just telling stories, but no, we knew we could tell.
Did
Like
you?
when we're going to our walk, man, we can smell if something's dead.
Well,
Easily.
yeah, because sometimes I'm like, what?
Everybody knows what that smell smells like.
Oh yeah. Did you?
So-
I don't know why. I just thought of like Stephen King in, I think it was in Dance Macabre, where he was talking about when he was a kid, like him and his little group of friends, they would do the same thing. They would like look for like dead
Look for dead
dogs or
stuff,
dead
yeah.
cats. Like that.
Oh, yeah.
And then they would like do experiments on it, like, hey, if we drop a brick on its ass, will it shit? Like stuff like that.
Right. The day
I'm like,
the day we
boys
stopped,
are different.
well, there was kind of like a group agreement, me, Jimmy, and Mike. There was 3 of us. We were all probably about 10 at that time, between 8 and 10. There was a day we just decided that's it, no more fucking around with dead stuff. We found a fucking German Shepherd up on the railroad tracks, and he was rotten.
no.
He was rotten, and the hair had all kind of fallen off of him. And Jimmy says, "Turn him over." So I found a big old fucking stick. It was probably about
They're like, you
6
do it.
Well, I had like a 6 or 7 foot long stick that we found. And I put it underneath it and turned it over, and it was just like a whole damn
Did all
bucket full of maggots.
literally boiling out.
Oh man,
Yeah,
and we
I can
all
imagine.
instantly just threw up. And that's it. We gave up the dead dog.
You learned a valuable
Yeah.
lesson that
It
day.
had because it was hot, you know what I mean?
Well,
And they were underneath that thing, eating up in the inside, and it was almost hollow. You know what I'm talking about? That's how I remembered it. When we flipped it over, all the fucking maggots, and that was it. Maybe we were throwing up.
Well, that's what
we
you
were running
get,
from
God
it
damn
and shit, And that was the last day we messed with that dude. We gave it up. We gave it up.
I'm not squeamish,
Gave it
but
up.
come on. I don't go
Yeah.
out of my way like looking for that
Oh,
shit.
we did. Well, okay. For you people who saw Terminator 2, the big chase scene where Arnie's on the motorcycle, he's in the big concrete.
Yeah.
Okay, that was called the flood controls. That's what we called it.
Yeah.
I think everybody called it the flood control system. It's where the giant ants lived from them.
Isn't that where they filmed the
Yeah.
car race in Greece also?
Yeah, that's what exactly. Well, we would follow the railroad tracks down to that place because it's in Long Beach, California. And there was also wildlife preserves back there, or reserves. I call them preserves, but that's
Whatever.
jelly.
That's jelly.
Wildlife preserves. We called it preserves,
Preserves.
when we were a little kid.
Preserves.
We would call it preserves as a little kid, We would go to the wildlife reserves down there, and it was basically kind of like a marsh that went up to about your knee when you were a kid, maybe up to your waist, because we'd go swimming in it and stuff, and there was fish in it, and that was just how we grew up as kids. And so taking the railroad tracks was about getting to the wildlife reserves. And man, there were bullfrogs down there the size of fucking cow shit. I'm talking about the size of
Yeah, there's some big fucking
huge.
bull. Yeah, there's some big.
Yeah, we try to eat them and stuff. You know what I mean? We never get the seasoning right. We're little kids trying to barbecue the damn frog legs.
Trying
and
to
shit.
eat them. Why would
Yeah,
you
and
eat
they'd be
them?
like half raw and shit. Because we were fucking boys, man. That's how we did that shit. Stealing gasoline and going inside the tunnels looking for the giant ants. We did that. We did all kinds of stuff. Because we needed the gasoline for the torches.
Well, I get that.
Yeah, and just all
That kind of shit I get. Like, 'cause,
Yeah.
you know, I used to set shit on fire and stuff too. But eating frogs, yeah, that wouldn't occur to me.
Yeah, just the legs.
I would just leave the frog alone. The frog is fine.
Just the legs, though.
I'd be like, hey, little buddy.
Not the whole frog, just the legs.
Well, he needs his legs.
No, we killed the frogs
Why did you do that?
to eat the legs. We'd catch the frogs and kill the frogs and then cut
Are
the
you sure
cut
you're
the
not a
legs.
serial killer?
No, we were just frog legs, you know. We'd also fucking hand catch crawfish and try to eat those.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and then out of that same wildlife
Well,
reserve,
that I can see. But, like,
Yeah.
if it's, like, a big frog, they're so cute. I don't...
there were lots of them. There, you know what I mean? It wasn't like
That
we
doesn't
were.
matter.
Nobody else was eating.
There's
them.
lots of people, too.
Nobody
you don't
else
go
was
killing them.
Nobody else was eating them.
I was like, when you were talking about when we were walking on the path,
Yeah.
you know, and smelling dead stuff and everything. I don't know
Yeah.
why I just thought of this, but remember I told you other morning I was walking along the path and a fucking squirrel ran across the path in front of me and a fucking hawk swooped down and grabbed the squirrel.
Yeah.
And that fucking squirrel fought like hell.
Mm-hmm.
He was just like scratching it. And the squirrel was like really smart. He ran into this big, because there'd been a storm the night before and there was like all kind of like branches and fucking
Mm-hmm.
leaves everywhere, like all over the ground. That squirrel like dove right into this big branch that
Mm-hmm.
was all like that. And he dove right in the middle of it and the hawk got caught
Yeah.
in the
See,
thing. And the hawk was like, fuck, man. And the
Yeah.
hawk
Wish I
couldn't
got
get
away.
out. And I think the squirrel got away, because then I saw the hawk, like he flew up on the little
Yeah.
mound there and he's like looking around, well, shit.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know, like the squirrel might have been hurt because, you know,
I'm sure.
they do the talons in
Yeah,
like
that squirrel
immediately.
probably ended up dying anyway.
I know, and that's kind of sad.
Yeah.
But you can see how like those little bitches are pretty smart though, because
Yeah.
he's like, "Ooh, I'm gonna go in here and get his fucking little talons all caught up in the tree," and it worked.
Yeah. I don't know. I've shot squirrels before and they ran away.
Yeah,
Yeah. I think to live, a 22 will go right through them without doing much damage.
yeah,
weird.
they might
So
be
I'd be
little
out there-
badasses.
yeah,
They just
'cause-
might be all like, it's just a flesh wound.
Went out there and
I'm
killed
going
like.
back in my tree.
That was the day that I went out there and
Fuck
killed,
all y'all.
I killed about 20 or 30 of them. I had a whole belt full of damn dead squirrels. It looked like I was wearing a fur skirt.
Our first squirt.
Yeah. Took them back to my dad's house, cleaned them and dressed them and made a squirrel stew. And didn't even get full off eating 30 fucking squirrels.
Well, there's not a lot of meat on
Not
squirrels.
I mean, I gave up killing squirrels. That's too much death and destruction for an unsatisfying meal.
And they're so cute.
Yeah. They'd be like, no, don't shoot. Yeah, I don't want to tell them.
That's what I mean. It's like, that's what, you know.
Yeah, and shooting them with a 22, sometimes you had to shoot them 3 times. It would just go right through them, and they just
God
continue to
damn it.
run.
It's like not worth it.
It wasn't worth it. I felt like a murderer. At the end, I was like, man,
Yeah. Why
I'd
don't you
rather
go-
kill one deer and actually eat.
And they're big.
Yeah,
yeah.
you kill one deer and eat for fucking a month.
Right.
And then instead of killing
Squirrels, you
30
have
of
to
these
do
little
like
things-
squirrel apocalypse, like
Yeah.
to even get enough food because they're
Yeah.
so small.
Yeah.
It just seems like why would you even bother?
Well, they're just tree rats, really.
Plus, they're adorable.
They're tree rats, a sophisticated, pretty tree rat. That's what they are. But still, they are little creatures, and they are kind of cute. So there's no reason, you know what I mean? Only in a very, only
I mean,
in a
if you were
dire
starving
emergency.
to death, fine.
Yeah,
But you know what I mean?
Yeah, only in a dire emergency would I kill
Plus,
them.
I feel like they're...
We are so off topic.
I know we are. Plus,
So-
I feel like they're like way more intelligent than they are given credit for.
They're the American monkey,
Yeah,
basically.
pretty much.
Yeah.
All right, so what you want to talk about John Wayne Gacy?
Yeah, we got to keep this show down under 3 hours tonight.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
never works out, does it? All right, so let's talk about John Wayne Gacy's early life. Now, by most accounts, he had a fairly normal childhood. Fairly normal. He didn't have any of your big danger signs. Like, as far as I know, he didn't like fucking like kill small animals, or he didn't. Now, his dad was kind of like abusive, but we'll get into that in a little bit. So he's born in Chicago in 1942. Now, he was the middle child. He also had a younger sister and an older sister. Now, his dad, whose name was also John Stanley Gacy, he was a auto repair guy or something like that. He had been in World War I, and apparently he was one of those dudes. There was a lot of these back in the day. He was real, like, everyone has to be like the manliest man that ever manned, and you can't have any like feminine, quote unquote, tendencies at all.
Gay.
Yeah.
Gay.
So
Every time I've ever seen that dude's gay.
Well, yeah,
A guy who's hyper worried about fucking whether or not you have damn feminine tendencies.
it's like, quit fucking worried about it. It's
He's
like,
trying
I don't...
to figure out who he can fuck. That's all he's doing.
It's like, I feel
Okay.
like maybe this is
Yeah.
why you had a lot of these types of serial killers, like back in this day, because when their dads were raising them, a lot of their dads were kind of like this. Their dads were, well, he was an alcoholic, I think. Also, he was, apparently, according to John Wayne Gacy, he was verbally and physically abusive to both his mother and the children. I don't know about the daughters, but he did kind of beat up on John Wayne Gacy. And he was one of those dudes that was like, everything is like, oh, you're faggy. You know what I mean? So John Wayne Gacy, he was, he was a little bit chubby when he was a kid. He wasn't real athletic. He wasn't, quote unquote, manly enough. So the dad was like, every single thing he did, he just called him stupid all the time. It's like that he would never amount to anything and all this other kind of stuff. Then that just never ends well. You know what I mean? Apparently, John Wayne Gacy had a very good relationship with his mom and his two daughters, however. And the weird thing about it is, though, even though his dad was apparently kind of a shit to him, John Wayne Gacy apparently, like, really, really loved and worshipped his father and spent most of his life seeking his approval, which...
That's some weird shit, though.
Seems to be, like, one of his, like, problems came about.
Yeah.
But,
Weird.
it seemed really weird. Like,
So he had a tough dad.
Yeah, and he even said, like, later on, he's like, I didn't hate my dad. Like, as shitty as his dad was to him.
Yeah, he had a tough dad who constantly punked him out.
Yeah.
And it put him in kind of like this submissive position to his dad in a way. To where he was always trying to please him. That's what happened there.
Yeah, that seems like exactly what it was.
And his dad's approval was unattainable. So in a way, he was raised trying to attain the appreciation of men.
Yeah, I guess you could put it that way.
That might be psychologically setting you up for you know what I mean, the kind of attractions he was into.
It could be, yeah.
Where you want to take your dad's role. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
You want to take his place. And his place is to have a boy worshiping him. Okay?
Yeah.
And being appreciative of his power. Well, if you don't, you know what I mean? So what he's doing is he's basically started off as kind of like sexually intimidating these boys.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? To try to kind of recreate that, or to recreate his dad's power.
That does seem to be kind of like what he was doing. Because it seemed like a lot of the victims that he would target were younger teenage boys, and he liked them, probably for obvious and maybe not so obvious reasons. He liked them very thin and small.
Well, that's because
he didn't want anybody that could like fight back against him.
Because when they were standing next to him, they were weak next to him. So that's what he's doing, man. He's trying to recreate that. He's trying to recreate his dad's power. He's trying to become like his dad was. You know what I'm talking about?
Which, like I said, in a way, maybe it would have been better if he had hated his dad.
Yeah.
Instead of, apparently really...
That way he can
really loving his dad and wanting his dad's approval. Like
maybe he's thinking that this boy will love him.
It could be. It could be that that's what he's trying to like recreate.
But then when that doesn't work out, he kills the kid.
Yeah.
See.
That might be what's happening.
Going to be something kind of like that.
But yeah. So apparently, like I said, the dad would beat him with straps. It's like he kept saying that his sisters were better than him, that he was stupid, and like he would never be good enough. Shit like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then like his mom would intervene and like try to get her husband to like stop beating on the kid. And then the dad would it would get even worse, because then dad would say like, oh, you'll just grow up queer. You're a mama's boy, blah, blah, blah. So all that kind of stuff. Raise your kids right, folks. You don't want to want them to turn out like John Wayne Gacy.
I already got this great suspicion that John's fucking dad is closeted gay. self-hating closeted gay.
It may be, because it's like, why? I don't understand why.
He's focusing in on that
I'm
shit
not
too
saying
much.
that everybody that is homophobic or whatever is a closeted gay, because that would just be ridiculous, and that's a general
not
statement.
all,
but it does seem like the ones who are most vehement about it.
Yeah, and like most sadistic about it.
Because
Man, you're
why?
fucking gay.
I don't really understand why anyone would care what other people are doing with their own buttholes or their own vaginas or whatever.
Most people don't care.
That's what I mean. It's like, why would anyone care? It's none of my business.
Other gay dudes care.
You know?
Other gay dudes care. And gay dudes care about other gay dudes. Well, what if you have a gay dude who's a self-hating gay dude? So he's got to punish all these other gays.
That's what I mean.
So
and I do feel like that's what
that's
kind of
what's going on,
in these
man. I'm telling you, man.
Sure.
I'm explaining gayology.
Gayology.
Yeah, playing gayology.
Now, so apparently, John Wayne Gacy, when he was a kid, like this happened in 1949. Now, apparently him and a little friend of his got caught molesting a little girl. Now, apparently, like Gacy got whipped as punishment for that. Now, according to him and according to a couple of other family friends, Gacy was also molested by a friend of theirs, like a friend of the family. He was also a contractor, and he would like take Gacy out like for rides in the truck and everything like that, and would end up molesting him. So that kind of happened as well. Apparently, Gacy said he never told his dad about any of that because he knew he would get beat for it. Now, Gacy also had a heart condition, and because of this, he was advised by his doctors to not participate in any like strenuous sports or any kind of activity like that in school. So he kind of he wasn't like a fat kid, you know what I mean? He was a little bit chunky, but not anything that would have been. But apparently, like, because he didn't play sports, because he had a heart condition, so he kind of got picked on a little bit, it seems like, by other kids. But all of his teachers and stuff like that seemed to really like him, because apparently he not real brilliant. He had like a little bit above average IQ, but apparently he was real eager to please, and he would like help out like with the truancy officer, and he was kind of like a teacher's pet type of kid. Now, during the 4th grade, like right about the time, which if you're not in the United States, 4th grade is what, 8, 9? 9.
Something like that.
About 9 years old.
Yeah.
So he starts having blackouts. Now, I've seen different sources for this. Might have been from some of his dad's beatings, but I've also seen that when he was about this age, he got hit in the head with a swing when he was 10 or 11, and it like kind of busted his head. So here's our old friend head injury again, just like we talked about with a lot of other serial killers.
Yeah,
very common.
That's the eternal 12-pack.
It is. It's like very common.
12-pack. After I had that motorcycle accident and everything for about 3 years, I felt like I had drank a 12-pack. Not 3 years, probably about a year.
Yeah.
A year.
So it does mess your.
Yeah, your inhibitions fucking, kind of like, yeah, fuck it.
And I guess if you already have inclinations in that direction,
right, yeah.
and you have a head injury on top of it, and you have an abusive father on top of that, then that's like a recipe for disaster, clearly.
Yeah.
But yeah, so whether it was that or something else, apparently he had a blood clot in his brain for several years that I believe was undiagnosed for about 5 years in there, like from when he was about 10 or 11 till he was about 16. And it was causing like blackouts, seizures, headaches, like all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Now, he also had like some other, like I said, he also had a heart condition. He had a burst appendix in 1957, so he had to be hospitalized for that. So he was in and out of the hospital a lot because he had like a lot of health issues. And apparently that was another thing that his dad was like picking on him about because he thought he was like faking everything. I don't know how you fake a burst appendix or a blood clot in your brain.
I'm telling you, man, his dad, his dad is going to be a key thing in John's fucking activity. You know, his psychology is fucking being forged by this guy's fucking insanity. That's what's fucking happening.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
And I just have this fucking.
You guys have to be really careful how you raise your.
Now we got gay subscribers, regulars. I'm gonna ask them. You know, some of them got me on Tom Shitty Movies and Facebook. Do you think John Wayne Gacy's dad is gay. You can put that in the damn comment sections. I think he is, and I bet you they're going to say the same thing. I think you're dealing with like a closet leather daddy.
Yeah.
With a kind of like this weird incestuous kind of thing where he doesn't want to have sex with his son. He's not going to openly have sex with his son. He's going to punish him. And there's almost going to be kind of like a little bit of a sexual, kind of a weird flavor to it. And in some way, John's loving this. It's just some kind of weird, twisted fucking relationship.
That's what I mean. It's
Most guys don't give a shit enough to go through this. They don't care.
And you see this over and over again.
Yeah.
Like with people that become serial killers later on. It's like not only the whole head injury thing, because a lot of people have head injuries.
Yeah,
and they don't all end up being serial killers. No. But it's like you see this kind of like messed up family dynamic. Which, that's not normal, y'all. No. It's like everyone's family is dysfunctional to a degree. You know, everybody's.
That's what people are like that.
Because everyone's dysfunctional. Everybody has something wrong with them. Nobody's perfect and stuff like that. But it's like, you know, you try to get by as best you can. But it's like, I don't know. Like, I feel like you read about this kind of shit and there's just always some kind of like fucking weird... There's almost like a weird like sexual dynamic, or there's like a weird like I don't know. That's just like a lot of kind of weird shit.
It seems slightly sexual, and it seems sadistic.
Yeah,
is what he's doing and I'm just telling you.
Yeah,
there's more there than meets the eye.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt it.
Yeah.
So now apparently Gacy never actually finished high school. However, when he was 18 years old in 1960. He kind of was very interested in politics, so he started working for the Democratic Party in Chicago as an assistant precinct captain. Now, his dad didn't like this either. That was also faggy, apparently. I don't really know.
I'm telling you, going back to that, it goes back to that shit.
It's like fucking holy crap.
He's gay. He's worried about that shit too much.
That's what I mean. It's like, why?
Man,
no normal person worries about this shit that much.
When I was back in the Army, I was in the infantry during the don't ask, don't tell era. You know what I mean? If gays were allowed, but you couldn't.
But you weren't allowed to like be open about it.
Right, which that can be that's been misinterpreted, in recent years. No. There were gays in our unit. We knew who they were. But nobody gave a shit.
Yeah.
Just as long as it was fucking closeted, because we had to have it put on a professional military appearance. And really the biggest fear with all that shit is that they don't want a system to where in order to get promoted, you got to screw some dude. That's really all it is about.
Yeah.
That's what they're trying to prevent. Because that's happened in other armies. German army, actually. In the 30s and the 40s. All right? A lot of people don't understand that. Well, it wasn't really so much the German army. It was the SA, which was a paramilitary group that helped bring the Nazis to power. This is a lot of people are going to get pissed.
Nazi days, yeah.
Early Nazi days. The early Nazis and the SA, and Hitler was involved, were a bunch of leather daddies. This is a gay ex-military man's group, and it was
like almost, it was hearkening back to like
Sparta,
ancient,
Sparta.
It was that type of thing.
Sparta, and
that's where their vibe was coming
right. from. And it's something that you don't see in American society, at least not yet, was the idea of warrior male homosexuality, which was fucking around in ancient Greece and Rome, fucking other countries, for thousands of years, because it's just a bunch of men locked up. Manly men amongst other manly men doing manly fucking things, and it's male supremacist. Women are nothing. It's just how pretty and powerful you are as a damn man.
Yeah.
That's what this fucking whole thing was about. That's why they were raping each other. They'd rape fucking dudes that fucking got defeated in battle. So you were fighting not only for your life, but for your ass.
Yeah.
It's like some shit out of some kind of maximum security prison. All right. And it can eventually get that fucking weird among men. Women do kind of fucking add some sanity to men in a certain
It's very
way.
funny because it's like in a way I'm very conflicted about that trope because it does seem like, wow, that's a lot of burden on women to like civilize men, because that does seem to be like something that
You take women out
was
of that
expected. But in a way, there's a little bit of truth to that, because when there's women around, men tend to behave better.
Yeah.
Not always.
I grew up in all male institutions.
We are a civilizing influence.
I grew up in all male institutions from an early age. You know, I was, military academies and stuff, and we were all good guys. But yeah, fucking, you know what I mean? You get a bunch of guys together for too long, man, they're fucking...
Men on their own go Lord of the Flies
exactly.
in record time.
Exactly.
Record time.
Exactly. They go very tribal. and motherfuckers die, you know, when you get too many men all in one spot. Just
until like, and all it takes is like one girl to show up and go, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah. So,
and everyone's all embarrassed suddenly.
So, yeah. So anyway, I kind of suspect that this dude is in that mode.
Yeah.
John Wayne Gacy's dad is one of these.
Yeah,
kind of like
probably.
somebody you'd find in the SA.
Yeah, he sounds
in the
like
German
that.
SA.
Like I said, I think that so many like serial killers' dads were like this, man.
Yeah.
Fucking hell. Just don't be like
and,
this.
You know, I kind of
I don't think anybody has to worry about it nowadays.
Kind of laugh when you kind of have these leftward kind of leaning civilians fucking get bent out of shape about gays in the military, and they don't understand what it was the military was worried about. They weren't worried about gays in the military. They were worried about what happened in the SA, because they don't have a knowledge of history. You know what I mean?
Oh, people on the left don't have a knowledge of history. Okay.
Well, no, they didn't have a knowledge of military history of what was going on in the SA. You get a bunch of fucking military men together, and it's a sexual situation. It goes bad. It goes sideways quick.
Well, anytime men are together for any reason, it goes sideways quick.
Yeah, okay, say it if you want. I'm only just going to point at the Third Reich and how that came about. And that was because extreme male supremacism is really where that shit comes from. And in a way, there's kind of like a sexual tone in that. That's where that's coming from.
Well, because you're trying to
outman other men.
Yeah. Like I said, it goes back to fucking ancient Greece, ancient Rome. It's like you see that everywhere.
It becomes where men are better than women.
Yeah.
And that women are unnecessary. And that a man's power and his physical appearance is better than a woman could ever be. That's why they're making those damn statues.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I know.
So it can get that extreme.
Women were like over.
They're just like cattle.
We don't even like.
It eventually gets to the point to where a woman's only purpose is to breed men.
Yeah.
They're men breeding pods.
Yep.
Yeah.
Super fun, ladies.
So you gotta watch it. You gotta watch it with that kind of thinking, because you will not have a balanced society. You'll have something.
No shit.
Yeah,
That's not a good direction to
eventually
be
it gets to
anyone.
where all the women are covered up and they just fucking work at home to raise children, hopefully men, and they take care of the sheep and the livestock. Matter of fact, the sheep are worth more. That eventually can happen.
Which is hilarious to me because, like, I don't know.
Well, the women aren't allowed to work, so
men just ain't all that.
The women aren't allowed to work in societies like that because it's totally male dominated. So the women don't have any value in terms of income. They're not bringing anything to the table in terms of income. So you can buy and sell them, and and that shit's out there today. I don't want to name any names, but there's a lot of countries. There are countries that are like that now.
Yeah, and like I said, shit's not cool.
Right.
We're people too. Hey.
Right.
Hi. But yeah, so all right. So basically, Gacy starts working for like in politics or whatever. Now his dad, I guess in a rare thing of sort of generosity, he buys him a car. However, he puts the title in his own name, and he basically says Gacy has to make all the payments, and it's like, if you don't make the payments on time, and take your keys. So there was that whole thing going on. Now, apparently the dad had taken the keys, like after he didn't make a payment or something, but Gacy had extra keys made because that's what you would do. I mean, that's what I would have done, the first thing. And apparently his dad took the distributor cap off. There was like this book, and it was like a war of attrition between these two. So basically after the distributor cap went back on because there was apparently a big fight about this. So Gacy's like, fuck this, I'm out of here. So he drove to Las Vegas and he started working for an ambulance service. Now, like I said, he never graduated high school. He didn't get, I think he got a GED later on, but he didn't have, any high school, he didn't have a high school diploma. So he goes and he gets a job at an ambulance service, and then he gets a job as like a janitor / attendant at a mortuary. Now, he worked at this mortuary in Las Vegas for 3 months, I believe. Now, it was kind of like, it was a pretty menial job. I think he lived on the premises, like he lived like in a room, like with all the bodies and stuff. Now, apparently, and I guess he said this later on, like after he got caught, that he got into the coffin of a dead boy that was in there and like fondled him and stuff.
Damn.
So, yeah. Apparently, I'm guessing he said that. So apparently this weirded him out. His own behavior weirded him out. And he called his mom and he said, hey, like, would dad, like, let me come home? Because I don't know what the fuck is going on with me out here.
How old was he?
He was only about 18 at this time. 18, 19 years old. So he's... Just a pro tip. You're 18, 19 years old and you actually have the idea to climb into a coffin with a dead body and feel it up. You might need to, like, call someone because that's not good.
What was weird is, like, he had some, like, kind of pangs of guilt about it. And then he called his parents.
And he called his parents and he said, he asked his mom, like, would dad let me come back?
This story is coming from him?
Yeah, but I think it's been substantiated by other family members.
It has been substantiated?
Yeah. I mean, he's saying that he got into the cop because I'm presuming nobody saw him do that.
It almost sounds like it's made up, but okay.
Well, why would you admit to that though?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I climbed into a coffin with a boy's dead body and felt it up.
Okay, well, it was substantiated. It wasn't something he said after he was caught to try to justify his fucking illnesses or anything like that.
Well, it might have been. Well, the weird thing about him was that after he got caught, he pretty much like confessed everything. But then like later on, he was like, no, I didn't do anything. And then he tried to blame it on his like roommates and stuff.
Yeah.
Even like, you know what the weird thing is? I was watching this documentary about him today. And it's like they were talking to this one guy. I don't know if it was like his lawyer or whatever. And he's like, John Wayne Gacy. It was like the day of his execution. And it was like an hour before he was going to be executed. And he's talking to this guy on the phone. And he's got like all this stuff like, oh, I need all this stuff for my appeal and stuff like that. And he's like, well, can you call me back like later today? And the lawyer's like, dude, you're going to be dead later today. It's like what are you talking about?
It was kind of like that guy who was being executed. He was mentally deficient. He's getting executed and he gave him his last meal. Remember I was telling you about that? Mm-hmm. Gave him his last meal and he ordered, and it was just like simple shit like hot dogs and some pizza, and then he had like some ice cream or a piece of pie. I think it was a piece of pie. And he didn't finish the pie. And they said, you're not going to eat your pie? And he goes, no, I'll eat that after the execution.
That's so sad though, because that kid probably didn't know. It's like I don't think they should be executed.
But he was killing kids. He was killing children. And shit,
I know, but it's like If
I remember correctly.
I mean, John Wayne Gacy is a different case because that dude was not mentally deficient. He was normal, and he was just fucking. I think that he was so deluded that he actually thought he was gonna get out of it. Yeah, that's what I think. Yeah. I mean, he wasn't like mentally retarded or anything like that. No. He had a little bit higher than average IQ. Yeah. He's fine. So it's like, I think just the fact that he said that, I think that he was cocky enough to think that he was going to get out of it like at the last minute. That's what I think. But yeah, so he comes back to Chicago, and even though he hadn't graduated high school, as I said, they let him enroll in a business college, Northwestern Business College, and he graduated from there in 1963. Now, apparently he did really well here. He was like... Everybody that knew him said he was like a natural-born salesman. He's very... That's the weird thing about him is he's very personable. He's very friendly. He doesn't come across as weird at all. Like, they talked to a lot of people that had known him back in the day that had worked with him or were his neighbors or whatever. And they all said the same thing. They were, like, shocked when he was caught later on because they were like, he just seemed so... friendly. He just seemed so open, and it's like there was nothing creepy about him. There was
No,
nothing.
he kind of carried
nothing.
himself kind of like an old school Chicago gangsters that whenever I heard him talk, hey, how you doing? He was just kind of like a Guido, or not really a Guido. What was one? Like a chucklehead.
Yeah, he wasn't a Guido because he was Polish,
Yeah, he was
but
Polish, but he was
Polish/German.
Yeah, he
not
was,
Italian.
But he was like a chucklehead.
Yeah.
You wouldn't think that he was,
Yeah, he was just like a
weirdo.
regular guy. Like everybody. And he was like all up in the charities, and he was all like big part of the community and shit like that.
He was trying to put on an aura of being a real man.
Which apparently it worked because nobody suspected a thing.
Yeah.
So he starts working for this shoe company, and he gets promoted to salesman, and he actually did really well there and got promoted to manager. Now, also in 1963, he got engaged to a co-worker of his whose name was Marilyn Myers. So they got married in September of 1964. Now, Marilyn's family was actually quite wealthy. They managed a whole bunch of KFCs. So what ended up happening there was that his Gacy's father-in-law was like, hey, why don't you guys come out to Waterloo, Iowa, and, Gacy can manage like 3 KFC restaurants that he had out there because, he'd done so well at the shoe store and everything like that. So Gacy and his new wife, they move out to Iowa, and he starts managing KFC restaurants. And then later, like, they moved into her parents' house. Like, her parents had moved somewhere else. And so the parents, like, gave them a house. So they, like, had quite a bit of money. Like I said, his wife's family had quite a bit of money. They had, like, they were big and, like, they had a bunch of KFC franchises and shit like that. So that happened in 1966. Now, Gacy was going to be making over $100,000 a year, like, managing these 3, like, 115,000, 120,000, something like that. Like, that's a lot of fucking money. So he was going to be making that every year, like, managing these 3 restaurants. Plus, he would get a share of the profits. So, So he, at this stage, too, like I said, he gets very involved in the community. He got into the JCs, which is kind of like, what is that even? Isn't that like fucking... What is the JCs?
JCs is kind of like the Shriners.
Yeah.
It's like...
I know what it is. I've heard of it.
You don't know what it really is? It's an organization of fat dudes that fucking don't have anything to do. They all get together and try to solve some kind of problems, and you know what I mean? And be a hero of the damn community.
They always did a haunted house every year because I worked on it a couple of times.
It's a men's club.
But I was like, what the hell are they even doing?
It's a men's club of fucking middle-aged guys like my age trying to find some shit to do.
Yeah.
One of the things I like that the Shriners used to do is fucking funny, man. They showed the parades in the their little
with
fezzes,
their fezzes and throw candy at everybody in their tiny cars.
And they'd be riding in those little fucking
little
tiny cars. Those little tiny
candy.
It was fucking hilarious, man. Big respect. Mad respect.
Do you know, it's funny, it's like probably...
It's a little go-kart and it looked like...
Probably that's the only thing that people know about the Shriners. That's surely the only thing I know about the Shriners nowadays is the fezzes throwing candy
and the little go-karts.
And the little bitty cars that they
and
drive around in parades.
They'd have the go-karts made up to look like any old kind of, like Ferraris or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pretty
I
neat.
remember that shit.
Yeah.
So like I said, Gacy's way up in the JCs. He gets promoted to like vice president at one point. Everyone thought he was super awesome because he managed 3 KFC restaurants, so he'd bring like free fried chicken to every event, which, that's going to make you a popular dude. It's funny because my uncle used to own a bunch of KFC franchises when I was a kid, so it's like every time we had a family get together, and both my parents like worked in his KFC stores when I was growing up. So it's like every family get together, we always had like huge like buckets of chicken. So, Yeah, so...
You mean first about chicken.
What?
I'll tell you what, man.
What? I haven't had KFC in a while.
I'm thinking of KFC. We haven't had it in a while. I was thinking about... We've been eating those rotisserie chickens from Publix.
It's greasy, but it's really good. We got a grocery store here named Publix. You can go down there and get a rotisserie chicken, like 5 different flavors. A whole fucking chicken for like $4. Yeah, they're only like $4 or $5.
$4 for a whole chicken. That puts KFC right out of the running. They had fried chicken too, but it's too salty.
It does. Well, it
salty.
depends on what day you go and who's working that day. Because I've gotten fried chicken. I don't get fried chicken there a lot. Because usually if I'm going to Publix deli, I'm usually getting a sub. But it's like, I've got fried chicken there enough times that about 70% of the time it's too salty.
Yeah, it's too salty. I don't think KFC is doing as good as it used to. There isn't one around here.
I haven't eaten there. There's one not too far from here. I haven't eaten there in a really long time. I ate there a lot as a kid. It's greasy. Like, I could only maybe eat one piece, maybe two. But then
I only
I'd
like
be like,
the
yeah,
original.
bleh.
I only like the original.
See, I only like the crispy.
I think
I
there's
can
too
eat
much
the
batter.
original too.
There's
but...
too much batter on it.
Yeah, but it's so good. It's like all crunchy and shit.
We got a Popeyes up the street. We haven't been hit neither. They got that red.
They
beans.
just built that shit.
And they got that red beans and rice. That's the. Let me tell you something.
I keep forgetting. There's a They just built a Popeyes like a month ago, like right up the street from our house.
Let me tell
we
you,
haven't been yet.
let me tell you, people, something. This is I'm telling this to you on a global level because we got people in England. We got people even in Indonesia listening to this show. I'm Southern Mississippi, and it came up in Louisiana also, and Mississippi. Popeyes is where you go. That's real.
Popeyes is good. Yeah.
Popeyes, that's real Southern chicken, really. And they have the best red beans and rice in the world.
They do. I would agree with that.
Red beans and rice.
Honestly,
the ones we got here,
every time I go there, I always get a shrimp po' boy.
Shrimp po' boy too. Best, but man, yeah, we got to go hit that up. And then they got that new sandwich, po' boy. Man, it sounds like we're plugging for fucking Popeyes.
I haven't been to Popeyes in like forever.
We're
There used to be one by my apartment when I lived over near Oviedo. Like, I used to work in Oviedo, and there was a Popeyes on the way. So every now and then, like,
we're
I'd
going
stop
to
and get some.
Popeyes in the next couple of days. Maybe we'll go tomorrow or something.
But yeah, they just built one like right by our house, and we haven't been to it yet. I keep forgetting that it's up there because it hasn't been there that long.
Popeyes, I think, is better than KFC.
I mean, I haven't had KFC in a really long time.
It didn't used to be. You know what I mean?
KFC was good when I was a kid.
Yeah, KFC was good.
It was greasy, but it was good.
It's gone downhill from what I heard.
I remember, it's funny because I remember when I was little.
They had the best gravy.
They did.
And the best coleslaw.
Yeah. I would agree with that.
Yeah.
I'm not a huge coleslaw fan, but yeah. But I remember when I was a little kid, because like I said, my dad used to manage one. So I used to go in the back, and him and his friend Perry used to be back there, like, making the big old tubs of mashed potatoes and stuff. Like, I remember, and I used to be fascinated by this big fucking thing that had the big stir. Because it was like, you know how you have the thing where, you know, you make the, frosting or shit like that, and it's like this little mixer or whatever. But they had like a big, huge one. It was like the big, huge fucking tub, and then it did stir. And they were always making like mashed potatoes in there.
I'm going to tell you foreigners something.
And I fucking love mashed potatoes.
I'm going to tell you foreigners over there something, especially people over there in the UK, because we got so many UK.
You foreigners.
We got UK patrons.
You foreigners.
For our UK patrons. A true American can eat more chicken than a human has ever seen. Okay?
I don't know. I've seen a lot of chickens.
America. I'm going to say it like America makes more chicken.
America, fuck yeah.
Fuck yeah. We're here to save the day. America makes more chicken in a month, okay, than Europe makes in 10 years, I'm sure. We're some chicken breeding motherfuckers, I'll tell you that.
Chickens everywhere.
Chickens fucking everywhere. We can eat just so much chicken. Chicken's like fucking, what is it, 60 cents a pound sometimes?
Yeah, it's really cheap.
It's cheap.
And you can do a lot with it.
Yeah. And like, we got one company called Sanderson's Farms. It's in Mississippi.
Yeah, that's right.
But Sanderson's Farms sent some fucking chicken to Russia, and Russia kicked that shit back. They said, no way can a chicken be that size. There's something wrong.
They're kind of like Franken chickens.
They're like
nowadays.
Franken chickens. A Sanderson Farms chicken breast is 6 times the size of a mortal chicken breast.
I mean, I'm even a little bit kind of horrified.
I'm concerned over what's going on.
We go to Sam's and we go buy I'm more into thighs because I like dark meat, but it's like we get like chicken breasts and they are like freakishly large.
Yeah,
and I'm like, okay, I'm a little uncomfortable about that.
The ones at Sam's Club or at Sam's, that's Sanderson Farms.
I mean, we've made dishes with one chicken breast that fed like 2 or 3 people.
Yeah, and the grains and the meat are too big. It's tough.
It's weird.
It's weird, and it's not tough. It pops and crunch. It's weird texture, And I've heard
Franken chicken.
that Sanderson's Farms can take a chicken from a hatchling to a full-grown chicken in 10 days.
I believe it.
So
maybe not 10 days, but I believe it.
that's just, I think they said 10 days.
So many hormones.
Yeah, it's got to be, it's something wrong there.
It's still delicious, though. I'm not gonna
The
lie.
legs are good, but I'm very suspicious. Evidently, they break their legs just walking around because
they're so fat.
because the breast
breast
weighs
is so
so
big.
much and the chicken's so young.
I've heard that
they're
happens
born-
with turkeys also, like Thanksgiving turkeys.
They're so young that their bones haven't hardened because they're growing at such a fucking huge rate. So evidently they just put them in a damn box so they can't walk anywhere.
For real, they need to just like make meat in petri dishes.
Eventually they will.
Then we can all feel better about it.
Yeah, they'll just fucking clone that damn chicken breast.
That's what
over
I mean.
And over
Then
and
they
over.
don't have to kill no animals.
Yeah,
It's like
you don't have to feed them either.
And it's a win-win.
Yeah,
it'll taste the same. It's like chemically and
and then you're
anatomically, it's
doing it, and then
just
you're
the same.
doing it in a damn laboratory / factory where it's all condensed all in one little spot. Like, you know that swai, swai fish. You know, I heard that those are actually grown in a damn barrel full of water, like a 55-gallon oil drum full of water, and that they dope those things up, and they live their whole lives in that damn barrel, and there's evidently just fish, just a little bit of water in there.
Yeah.
And they're blowing air through it, bubbles, you know, and that they have to put a bunch of damn Valium and stuff into the damn water to keep them sedated, and they grow quickly too.
You'd think they would eat each other.
It's evident. I don't know. I'm just saying. You know, that's what I heard. And maybe they say it's like real inhumane the way they're growing those fish in that damn barrel.
Well, yeah, kind of every like factory farm thing.
Yeah,
a little bit.
But that, you know, but we're eating it.
I know.
Yeah, but evidently they never see any light or anything.
Like I said, I can't wait
That's
till
some
they
weird
just
shit.
grow some fucking meat in a lab.
I'll
eat that shit.
They'll grow it in a damn factory.
If it tastes the same, I don't care.
We're off topic. Drunk and off topic.
Whose fault is that?
Okay.
Probably
This is going to be
yours.
another 3-hour fucking show.
Well, because I started talking about KFC and then you went off about Popeyes. And then
I'm
you
thinking
were
about
just
that
like,
goddamn Popeyes. Evidently,
we can go to
We're
Popeyes
gonna go
tomorrow.
Oh, okay. All right.
Let's go to Popeyes tomorrow.
Okay. We'll go to Popeyes tomorrow.
Okay. All right. So, as I said, like, Gacy got, like, promoted to, like, vice president of the JCs and everything like that. Now, his wife also had 2 kids. Yes, Gacy had children. A son named Michael was born in 1966, and they also had a daughter named Christine who was born in 1967. Now, apparently, he hadn't killed anybody yet, okay? So it's like at this point, it almost seemed like he had like the idyllic, perfect life. He had a really good job. He had a lot of money. He had a wife. He had 2 kids. He had like, you know, the perfect American dream, blah, de, blah. Now, from what he said that his dad came to visit him during this period of his life, which he called, quote unquote, perfect. And he said his dad came to visit him and apologized to him for all the shit that he had said and done to him as a kid. It's like, oh, okay, I guess you worked out okay. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like you actually like made something of yourself. I don't know if that's true or not, or if that was just like wishful thinking, because like I said, that's all he wanted was like approval from his dad. So I don't know if his dad actually ever did that or not. That doesn't seem like something that someone like that would do. Okay. But I don't know. Could be wrong. Now, it does seem, though, that there was some, even before he had killed anyone, there was some kind of, like, creepy shit going on behind the scenes. Apparently, there was a lot of porn, prostitution, a lot of drug use, wife swapping, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So, now, according to several sources, Gacy actually like frequented prostitutes, so he cheated on his wife a lot. He also supposedly like opened up this little club in his basement where he would let like a lot of his underage friends and employees like come and drink, you know, when
right. He had his own private bar
where they weren't really supposed to. And apparently, according to some of them later on, he also made sexual advances towards some of these young men too. Yeah. So, you know, now, and if he got in trouble later, he would just say, oh, I was just kidding. Right. Which, you know, that's the last refuge of the scoundrel.
So he's trying to
I was just joking.
He's trying to get some ass, like, you know, legitimately, even though they're underage. But he's trying.
Yeah, because so it's not really legitimate. It's just he was actually trying to ask for it.
He was trying to,
and then they'd be like, "Nah, man, what are you doing?" He's like, "Nah, man, I was just kidding."
He's like, "Man, I need."
Or I was just testing you to see if you would do it.
Yeah,
like he would say,
then you'd be a fag.
Yeah, he would say shit like that.
Yeah. So what he's doing? Yeah, I understand his game.
Oh man, I hate that shit. I hate that shit. I
understand his game.
I hate that shit when somebody asks you some fucked up shit, and then you're like, "No, man, what the fuck?" And I was just kidding. No, you weren't kidding.
No,
you weren't kidding.
That's what he's doing now.
Yeah. All right. So let's actually take a break right now because we're about at an hour.
I need to refresh this drink too.
Yeah, I probably need another one too. This probably is going to go on for 3
hours
because I'm not even hardly.
You're not even there?
I'm just right at the...
I told you, don't let me go on like that.
Well, yeah, but if I tell you to shut up, you get mad at me.
Okay.
I can't win.
All right. So it's still gonna be
Did you see that somebody on the YouTube comments on the last show that we did about pandemics? They said they wondered if that I made you sleep on the couch.
Oh yeah.
Because we got in a fucking argument on there about vaccines and shit.
They don't understand what it's like around here.
We're not. Well, I don't want to give the impression we're not always fighting. It's just that kind of
just that we. No.
Well, he's just kind of always going on, and I'm just yeah, whatever. Yeah. It's more like that.
It's nothing serious. Don't worry.
We're just fucking with each other. We've known each other a long time.
Yeah,
seriously.
So we get away with a lot of shit.
A very long time, yeah. So all right, so we're gonna take a break right now. We'll be back momentarily to talk more about fucking John Wayne Gacy. You guys, we'll be back in a minute.
What's up, sweetie? Where you going? Yeah. Hey. I know you're on TV. What's up? What's up? You just looking for non-edible things that you can eat? Sure. Look at. Don't eat that. Please don't eat that. Oh. Why do you do that? Why do you do that? Why do you do that? That can't feel good. Look at her. Look at that. I buy you all these chew sticks, and yet... and yet... you just keep doing that. I know. I don't know what your deal is. I don't know what your deal is. I know. You can't help it. It's an addiction. Oh, now you're gonna chew that one? Alright. Damn, she's getting all into that. You getting all into it? Why? Why, Pookie? It's part of her eternal quest to get Pookie drool all over everything. Yeah. No! Oh, look what you did! You're messing up Daddy's Valentine's Day card. She just ate that right off of there. Not a sentimentalist, I take it. Obviously. Oh, goodness. Yeah, you sick of that? Okay.
You love true crime. I love true crime. And I've spent the last 3 years compiling a series of the most intriguing unsolved murders of the 20th century. It's called The Faceless Villain, and Volume 3 is available now. Featuring such fascinating cases as the Ketty murders, the Carey babies case, the Frog Boys, the Alcasar murders, and the Inokashira Park dismemberment incident, The Faceless Villain Volume 3 is an involving exploration of unsolved slayings spanning the years from 1980 to 1999. Pick up your copy in print or ebook formats on Amazon, or download the audiobook version from audible.com, and get ready for a chilling journey through modern crime history. All right, we're back.
We're back, yeah.
We got more drinks. We found the cat.
Yeah, I got pork chops cooking.
We got pork chops cooking.
Yeah. I got the timer set for an hour. So we'll see.
Well, if the timer goes off, we're going to have to turn it off and then come back to it later on.
Put some of that applewood rub on there. I'm going to cook them, and then I'll turn it. It's like, don't worry about it. I'm not going to inform the audience. It'll just make them hungry. Yeah.
Our shows will make you fat because we just like...
It's a toss for 'em.
One of these days, I know we already have like 4 weekly shows now, but it's like... Remember back in the old days when we were talking about doing like a food show or like a retro show we were talking about doing and we never like got around to it?
Got around to that one, yeah.
Because we always end up talking about
We got a huge
food.
workload.
Yeah, that might still be fun to do though one of these days.
We don't get that much traffic on those movie reviews.
That's true. I do feel like people like the stories more than the movie reviews.
Yeah, maybe we'll just stop them.
No.
You don't think so?
No.
Is it worth it?
Well,
is it worth the time?
Well, the matinee show, I feel like we don't get as much on the matinee show, like as the older.
The retrospectives, say we get action on those.
Yeah,
it takes time, but the
because everybody likes the older movies.
Yeah, but
I don't know if people like because there's a lot of people reviewing new movies, so it's like we just started doing that because we got like the AMC Stubs program.
Yeah, so we were like
hey, shit was free, so
bonus material.
Why are you blurring my shit? You're blurring my shit.
You're blurring the shit, not me. Why are you putting it on me? Okay, let's get back to the case.
All right, so let's get back to talking about John Wayne Gacy. So, August of 1967, John Wayne Gacy committed what is thought to be his first known sexual assault, not a murder, his first known sexual assault on a teenage boy. Now, this was a 15-year-old named Donald Voorhees, no relation to Jason Voorhees.
Yeah.
He was actually,
That's funny.
which is a fictional character, in case you didn't know.
Not in my childhood. I thought that bitch was real. He was gonna come through the fucking window at any moment.
That's how I felt about like the
Yeah.
antagonist of My Bloody Valentine. I thought that minor was gonna come out.
After I saw Friday the 13th fucking part 2, man, that was it. I was fucking scared of that bitch after I saw that. He had his mom's head out on the fucking table with the sweater on it and everything. Oh man.
So messed up.
Yeah.
One of these days we'll have to pull a Cinemassacre and do like the whole Friday the 13th review series.
I was watching that when I was fucking visiting my dad out in Mississippi during the summers. So that shit was country. So fucking Jason lives out there. Fucking right.
Yeah, he lives out in the fucking camp. He's gonna bust in your window.
Yeah, if you live up in London,
hey,
you know. If you live in London, you don't give a shit about fucking Jason, but fucking no, man. Mississippi, Jason could be around any fucking corner.
Well, the thing about it though is that in the early days, Jason could only if you were dumb enough to go to Camp Crystal Lake, then you were gonna get your ass killed. But it's like Jason wasn't gonna go out into the world and kill people that were outside until Jason takes Manhattan and Jason goes to space and all that other bullshit.
You had to go to Camp Crystal Lake, all that tight ass and the little fucking shorts and shit. You were gonna go if you were fucking.
There's tight asses and shorts everywhere. You don't have to go to that specific place to get it.
You're like a fucking 14, 15-year-old boy. You're gonna fucking watch Friday the 13th. That's just all there is to it.
I know.
They taking the clothes off and that shit.
I know.
Yeah, it was looking good too.
Well, I was into it, but it's I don't think about it too much.
Let's get back. We were getting sidetracked again.
Yeah. So, yeah, see how I said... Well, because I said Voorhees.
Okay.
That's why.
You're killing
me. Am I? Yeah. Okay. So, this 15-year-old was actually the son of someone that was also in the JCs with John Wayne Gacy. Mm-hmm. So, apparently, what ended up happening, and this was something that Gacy would do a lot, he would get the kids to come to his house by saying, hey, I have some really good porn. This was 1967, you guys. It's not like nowadays where porn was ubiquitous and you could just see it every time you opened your fucking browser.
I think it might have been technically illegal in 67.
It might have been.
Yeah, because there was a bunch of interstate laws about transporting it across laws, which kept it suppressed. Well, it was like something clubs did. Men's clubs.
That's what I mean. It's weird because because I went to a couple years ago. I went to New York and they have a museum of sex there. And I went to that and they had a whole exhibition about blue movies, back in the 20s and 30s and stuff like that. So it's they had a bunch of that stuff showing. And it's interesting how, because now it's fucking ubiquitous. Porn is everywhere. You really have to kind of sort of actively avoid it because it's kind of all over the place. But it's like back in the old days, you had to like go to specific places to see it.
Yeah.
Like even theaters wouldn't show it. It was just like kind of on these little like kind of homemade movie things, and they kind of like made the rounds of
porn
like,
was for
little bitty-
fucking kings, actually, up until that
pretty
point.
much.
You had to
It's
be
like
a king.
that's
That you had to
yeah. It's like really weird.
Tutankhamun had porn. You had to, you know. Put
He
that
just
shit in
drew,
a tomb
he drew
where
it on the
just drawn, yeah.
the papyrus.
Yeah, then Rome,
It was so hard back
Romans
then,
were trying to
Becky.
sculpt it and shit. Fucking pants or satyrs having sex with goats and shit. That was their fucking porn.
Yeah, like that famous statue
Yeah.
that they won't put out in the.
Yeah, you know, that was a fucking.
It's a nice statue.
That was
I
nobles
like it.
that uncovered that. They had
Yeah.
a big event where they were
It's a beautiful
uncovering it, and then they
statue.
saw what it was. It was a satyr having
They're
sex
like,
with a goat.
"Woo, check
They're like,
this shit
shut that
out.
shit down,
Whoops,
shut it
no."
down. Didn't happen.
Bestiality. We
Imagine
didn't
that shit.
realize that was going
Well, it
to
wasn't
be
really
bestiality.
Well, it was kind of like it wasn't really bestiality. It was like because it wasn't a human that was doing it. It was a god or a demigod having sex with an animal. Satyr.
Still kind of.
Yeah, it was weird shit.
Still kind of bestiality.
Yeah.
But it's a nice statue, though.
Yeah.
It's just very
beautifully crafted.
It is. It's
Yeah,
beautiful,
beautifully
and it's
crafted.
like that's what's so funny about it. It's like they won't fucking.
It has
put
something to do with some kind of Roman story, I think.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
It's just funny to me that they won't
Yeah.
like put it on public display because they think everyone's going to be like fucking scandalized. I'm like, in these days, I don't think so. But yeah, so that's kind of how Gacy would like lure some of his earlier victims like back to he's like, hey, I've got porn, and like 15-year-old boy, they're like, okay, I'm there.
Yeah.
So yeah, sadly. So this 15-year-old boy whose dad like also worked for the JCs, which in a way like Gacy's kind of like a dummy because he's going after kids of like dudes he knows
Yeah.
that are like co-workers and like that's pretty stupid.
Yeah. He
But
didn't
yeah.
think it through.
Well,
Thinking with his little head.
yeah, well,
Yeah.
that's kind of how
Thinking
that
with the
goes.
wrong head.
So he gets the kid over there, like saying he's got porn. Then he starts giving the kid a bunch of liquor, which, you know, the kid's like, okay, he's 15. You know what I mean? And then he forces the kid to give him head.
Right.
You know, perform oral sex if you want to be like all proper about it. Now, apparently other kids went through the same shit like over the next couple of months. Like Gacy was doing the same kind of shit. Another tactic that Gacy would use, I love this. This was the 60s, y'all. He would say that he was, and keep in mind, these are like 14, 15-year-old kids, okay? Don't judge too harshly. He would say that he was doing scientific experiments into like homosexual behavior.
Right, yeah, he had to research
And
that
he
shit.
wanted it, yeah, and he wanted to research it. He's like, I'll give you $50 if you suck my dick or
Yeah.
let me suck your dick. That's
Oh,
kind of the
man.
level of shit. But like I said, this is the 60s, and
Doing
these are
research.
kids.
Yeah.
So, you know,
He was hired by the government.
I think
he's
that's kind
contracted
of
by
what he
the-
was implying.
He was hired by the government to get down to the bottom of it.
Right. Well, because in a lot of places it was illegal at the
Yeah.
time. So, yeah.
Motherfucker.
So this happens to Donald Voorhees. Now, eventually, Donald tells his dad about what happened to him, and his dad reported it to the police.
Yeah.
So Gacy gets arrested and charged with sodomy. Now, he had also attempted assault on a 16-year-old boy named Edward Lynch. Now, when they brought Gacy into custody, he totally was like, no, man, I didn't do any of that stuff. Give me a polygraph, blah, blah, blah. So they give him a polygraph, but it's kind of inconclusive. And like when they ask him about the crimes that he's accused of, he seems like really nervous about it.
Yeah.
So, you know, that was something there. Now, he says, and this is kind of like a trademark of some shit that Gacy would do. He says that I think that Voorhees' dad accused me of that stuff because he didn't want me to be vice president at the JCs or whatever the fucking position was. He basically said, oh, it's political. That's what he said. And he's like, and that's why like people are making up all this stuff about me. Now, the creepy thing about this, though, was that so many people in the JCs, like, knew him and were, like, friends of his and stuff, that they believed that shit. So it's like, they were, like, backed him up. Well, they didn't know. I mean, you know what I mean? They didn't know any better. So, like, they pretty much defended him because, like, you know, whatever. Some dude is just like fucking making shit up about him because they don't want him to be vice president or whatever. So 1968, late summer of 1968, again, Gacy is like not the brightest bulb on the tree, is all I'm saying. So he pays one of his employees, who was 18 years old, and his name was Russell Schroeder. He pays this guy to go beat up Donald Voorhees to like keep him from testifying against him. Huh. Is this a good idea? It is not.
That could backfire.
Yeah, you think?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he basically says, he's like, okay, well, you take Donald to like a secluded spot, you spray him with mace,
What?
and then like beat his ass. So yeah, he said, I will. He promised this dude like $300. I don't think he paid him up front, but he said, if you do it, I'll give you $300. So the kid does it. It's like he lures Donald to like a park. He sprays the kid, Donald Voorhees, with mace, and then he beats him up. And he's like telling him the whole time, it's like, you know, don't testify against fucking Gacy at the trial, right?
Yeah.
So Voorhees gets away. He goes to the cops and reports it, as you would. And he recognized the dude that had attacked him because he knew that guy.
Right.
So he said, hey, it was Russell Schroeder.
Right.
So you might want to look into that. So
it was
Russell,
real. It was like a fucking black
that's
ops.
what I mean.
Fucking special
like,
forces
fucking,
needed this motherfucker.
This is like not, yeah, this is
no
like.
one will ever know who committed this.
I know.
Go
So, yeah, so Russell gets arrested like literally the next day. So he's like, initially he's just like, no, I didn't do that shit. But then like they keep questioning him. And finally he's like, okay, well, John Wayne Gacy paid me to do this shit. So Gacy gets arrested and he gets, you know, not only did he have sodomy charges, but now he has the charge of like paying this other kid to go and beat this other kid's ass for fucking whatever. So at this point, they're like, okay, well, this guy's clearly not right in the head. So they order him to undergo a psychiatric evaluation at the State University of Iowa. Now, 2 doctors evaluate John Wayne Gacy. And they conclude that he has an antisocial personality disorder, which no doubt.
That's close, yeah.
And they recommend, they're like, look, I don't think that, they're like, okay, he is definitely going to reoffend. They said this back in the 60s. He's going to reoffend, and I don't think that he will get anything out of any therapy or medical treatment or anything like that. So they're basically, not in so many words, but they're basically saying, you should lock this dude up because this is not good and it will probably get worse later on.
They were right.
Yeah. So one of the, there was a report which, you know, was one of his psychiatric evaluations in 1968. One of the quotes from that was, the most striking aspect of the test results is the patient's total denial of responsibility for everything that has happened to him. He can produce an alibi for everything. He presents himself as a victim of circumstances and blames other people who are out to get him.
Right.
The patient attempts to assure a sympathetic response by depicting himself as being at the mercy of a hostile environment.
Okay.
So basically, they arrest him and he's like, oh, it wasn't me.
Yeah.
It was always like, it was a political motivation. It was this, that, and the other. Now, what ended up happening? So Gacy's standing trial for the sodomy charge and also the charge of like hiring the other kid to beat the other kid's ass for testifying or whatever. So his attorney tells him, okay, well, enter a plea of guilty. Because apparently there was just like 1 count of sodomy because, like I said, that was illegal at the time. He pleaded not guilty to the other charges, however. Now, he said, and this is kind of a lifelong thing with Gacy. He says that, yes, him and Donald Voorhees had sex, but that it was consensual.
Yeah.
And he also said, well...
He was underage.
He offered... Well, yeah. He said, it was like, he offered the booty,
why?
and I was curious. That's what he said.
Yeah, he's curious about it. I was just curious.
That's what he said.
The reason why he's saying it was consensual, of course, because the charges were a lot less.
Yeah.
Because back in those days, I don't think you could get a lot of... I don't think you can get in a lot of trouble for having sex with somebody who's underage.
Probably not.
No.
It doesn't seem like the 70s was very...
Well, actually, how old was he? Like
what?
16? 15?
Wait, who? Gacy?
No, the victim.
15.
Yeah, I think the age of consent in most states back in those days would have been more like about 16. The legal age of consent.
Yeah.
Still, I don't think they'd have fucking given him a couple months.
So I feel like in
months.
the 60s and 70s they
really
probably wouldn't have seen that as a big deal.
They'd have been like,
which is kind of terrifying because we know how that shit goes.
Yeah, but back in those days, people were getting. I mean, well, look at it this way: 50 years before that, people were getting married at 13.
Yeah, but I can see like the not creepiness because I'm very into, and we might have discussed this before, but I'm like kind of a thing where if your like boyfriend is 17 and you're 15 or something like that, and it's like that's a different issue. Now, if someone is 14 or 15 and the dude is like 30, yeah, that's. But
you also have to remember the thinking of the time. I remember when I was young. I guess you could say the purity of a boy didn't mean shit. It was only the girls.
Well, I don't think anyone.
They didn't care.
Yeah, well, I don't think anyone nowadays still cares about purity of boys.
Yeah,
I don't ever hear about that.
Well, they did convict that one teacher of having sex with that kid. He was probably about 14.
Which rightfully so,
and
because
that
anytime
happens.
you take advantage of someone that's underage,
yeah, they're doing it.
I don't
now.
care.
They're
what
going
gender
after
you are.
him now, but back in the 60s, they wouldn't have given a shit.
No, they wouldn't have.
They'd be like, you had fun, didn't you, kid?
That's what I mean. Yeah. And there's still some lingering shit of that, but I do feel like they're at least getting to a point where that's recognized as like, hey, that's not good. Because like I said, I don't care what gender you are. If you're fucking 30, 35 years old and you're going after a fucking 14-year-old kid, that's not good.
Yeah.
I don't care if you're a man or a woman or whatever. I really don't. So, yeah. So, nobody bought Gacy's story about, it was consensual and I was just like experimenting because he offered it or whatever. So he gets convicted of sodomy in December of 1968. He gets sentenced to 10 years, which, I mean... That's
a heavy sentence for back then.
Well, that's what I mean. Like, in light of his later crimes, it doesn't seem like that big a deal, but it's like, he only got convicted of sodomy.
Yeah.
Which... It wasn't even like rape. It wasn't even anything.
Yeah,
so 10 years seems like a lot.
That's a heavy sentence for that charge.
Not for him. I'm just saying in general.
It's not a heavy sentence for the crime.
Right.
But for that charge in general, that just means being gay. Sodomy means being
That's
gay.
what I mean. Can you imagine getting 10 years just for like having
being
butt
gay.
sex with someone?
Yeah.
And like I said, even if it was consensual, even if they believed that it was consensual, even if it was two adults that it was consensual, like, you would get.
That's
like,
what I was saying.
They
normally didn't do that though.
Holy fucking shit.
They normally didn't do that though. My understanding was usually it was just a slap on the wrist.
Goddamn.
Yeah, but
this wasn't that long ago.
I think what they did was
backwards.
I think what they were doing was that they understood what they were dealing with. They were dealing with some kind of serial child molester.
Maybe not, because
so they're going like max that bitch out.
Maybe not, because we'll see how this happens.
Somebody maxed his ass out. They knew what they were dealing with.
Yeah.
But somebody else maybe let him out, because in those days you could get out of long sentences in other ways too.
True.
I mean, shit. Fucking McDuff got the death sentence, got that commuted to life, and then Texas did all kinds of weird shit, and he got out 6 years later.
Yeah.
After fucking raping and killing 7 years later, something like that. After but it might have been a little bit more, but it wasn't long. After fucking murdering a teenage girl.
Yeah.
It's
weird. It just seems like, I mean, I know because
situation.
It depends on the county. It depends on the city. It depends on the state. It depends on the person. Like, it depends on the person on the bench. It depends on the people on the jury.
Yeah, that system is not...
It's like, well, you're not going to get consistency because it's human, it's humans, like, doing it.
Also, politics and needs of the state.
Yeah,
all
so
of a
it's like
sudden they're running,
sometimes
yeah.
like somebody that did a horrific crime was they're out in 18 months, and then
Yeah.
like another dude that did something like nothing, and then they're
he's
like in there for
20
like
years.
fucking 20 years. It's
Yeah.
like fucked up.
A lot of it has to do with
What are
fucking
you gonna
money.
do?
Like
Well, that too. If you're poor, like I said, and I've said this on the
Yeah.
show before, if you're
No
poor,
defense.
you're just hosed.
Well, that's not what I was referring
just
to.
hosed.
Macduff got out of all that fucking out of a death sentence and walked in a few years in Texas because the Texas economy back in those days was fucking collapsed and they couldn't keep all those guys fucking locked up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he had a death sentence, but then they had a governor or some shit went down where they declared that to be unconstitutional, so he got life instead. But then there was some other weird shit that happened that said, well, it was either 25 to life, and then somehow he got 25, and then you did 25, but you only had to do half of that. The rest of it you could do it on parole, and then there was good time or good behavior and shit, and they were doing all that kind of crap because they didn't have money to keep all these guys locked up.
Well, yeah.
Texas at that time was having a big influx of guys fucking committing crimes, and their economy sucked, and they had to let some of them go. And then they let Macduff out, and that motherfucker was a vicious fucking serial killer.
Yeah, it's
But that's like the only I think that's the only one they let go in the history of the U.S. That they let a serial killer go, and they knew he was a serial killer.
yeah, that's messed up.
Yeah.
If you're gonna let anybody go, let some fucking pot smokers go.
They were letting them go too.
You know,
It was a
don't let murderers
it was a
out.
Texas
or rapists.
It was a Texas
because that's
thing.
kind of the same thing.
It was a Texas thing that was happening in the early '80s.
It's just, it's messed up. Well, like I said, it's in this situation, it's like, yeah, he probably shouldn't have been let out, but it's like in the 70s, they didn't really, I don't know. It just seems like a really weird situation. So he gets 10 years. Now he gets convicted. On the day he's convicted, understandably, his wife is, like, fuck you, I'm out. She filed for divorce and took his children away. He never saw either his ex-wife or his children ever again, and probably to their benefit.
He probably didn't give a shit anyway.
I don't think he did. I think
That was his fucking smokescreen. That was his beard. His cup.
Yeah, I have read some quotes where he was just kind of like he didn't want custody of the kids, or he didn't really care if he saw them again because he didn't really. I mean, he doesn't really seem like a fucking.
He was into those boys.
Model citizen.
He was into those boys, man.
So he gets imprisoned at Anamosa State Penitentiary. A model prisoner at this fucking penitentiary. He got to the position of head cook at this place. And he, I guess, in the prison, they also had the JCs in there. And he kind of rose up in the ranks in there. And he got, like, all these people to join and shit like that. He got, like, a miniature golf course and the fucking shit and everything.
Miniature golf course in prison?
In a prison, yeah.
Okay.
So it's like, he's kind of like one of those dudes. It's like he's always just kind of like trying to get some shit going, man.
Right,
it's like,
yeah.
fucking Jesus Christ. So he applied for parole in June of 1969. This was denied. While he was in there, he apparently finished high school, finally. He got his diploma in November of 1969, because like I said before, he had never finished high school. Now, Christmas Day of 1969, Gacy's dad died from cirrhosis, because like I said, he was an alcoholic. And apparently, Gacy was really, really upset about this, because he petitioned to like the prison, supervisors to let him go to the funeral, and they would not let him go. And apparently all the other prisoners that were serving time with him and stuff like that said that he was really, really broken up about. He was very upset that he had not got a chance to say goodbye to his father, or like had never had like a chance to like get like final acceptance from his dad or whatever. So that was apparently something that like really, really bothered him. So he gets parole, and he gets probation in 1970, in summer of 1970. He had only served, if you're counting, 18 months of the 10-year sentence.
Dang.
Although, like I said, 10-year sentence for just sodomy, even though it was an underage kid, this is the 60s that we're talking about. So it's like, nowadays, yeah, no one would be surprised by that. But back then, it seems like that was kind of an excessive. But he still got out after 18 months.
That's why they gave it to him, because they figured he would be out in 18 months. 18 months is nothing.
Yeah, year and a half.
Yeah.
Out of 10 years.
In prison terms, that's nothing.
And they basically said, well, we'll let you out as long as you go back to Chicago and live with your mother.
Right.
You can't be out past 10 p.m. And he had to go to the Iowa Parole Board to update them on his progress. So Gacy goes back to Chicago to live with his mom, and he gets a job as a short order cook in a restaurant. Now, he didn't last too long before he did some more shit. Because in February of 1971, he sexually assaulted yet another young boy.
Damn.
So this
Working
kid...
in the restaurant?
Well, yeah. Well, what happened was... So the kid said that Gacy had basically lured him into his car. Like, it was at the Chicago Greyhound bus terminal. It's like, I think that he just offered me... He's like, hey, I've got marijuana. And the kid was like, oh, okay, whatever. So the kid gets in the car, and then Gacy tries to, like, force him into sex. Now, the kid reported it to police, as you would. However, because the kid would not show up in court when the court date arrived, the charges were dismissed.
Failure to appear.
So, so that didn't, like, turn up on his... Because he was still on parole at this point. Gacy was. So it didn't, like, turn up on the whole, like, parole thing, because normally that would slam you right back in jail if you did some shit like that. But because the kid didn't show up in jail, I guess it didn't, like, go through or whatever. So they didn't, like, find out about it. Gacy's mom gives him some money. He buys a house in Cook County, Illinois. Now, this house at 8213 West Summerdale Avenue is the house that is most associated with John Wayne Gacy and all his crimes, because that's where he buried most of the people that he killed. So, yeah. So, he moves into the house. At this stage, he becomes engaged to yet another woman. How can these dudes keep finding people to marry them? I don't understand. It's like,
back in those days, want ads.
I guess.
Personals.
Yeah, I think that this woman, Carol Hoff, this was someone that he had known back in high school. And I think they had dated back in high school, like, not that seriously, but then they kind of, like, reconnected later on. And she had been married, and she subsequently, she had a kid or two, like, in the meantime, because she'd been married in the interim.
She had a prior relationship with him.
Yeah, so she was divorced and stuff.
Right.
So they kind of, like, reconnected, like, after a long time. So they kind of got back together at this stage. Now, she moves into his house with her children. She had 2 daughters. Now, his mom was actually, like, moving there, like, living there too, but she moved out in 1972. Now, 1 week before Gacy married Carol Hoff, he got arrested again, and he was charged this time with aggravated battery and reckless conduct. Now, this was someone named Jackie D. said that Gacy had been posing as a police officer, like, had showed him a sheriff's badge, had lured him into his cop car, or he had a car that sort of looked like a cop car, like he had kind of like the spotlight in it and shit like that, like he did that on purpose. So he lured him into the car and, like, made him give him a blowjob.
Damn, like a cop does.
Yeah.
Ain't that some
Well,
shit?
Some cops do that.
I don't know.
So
I don't know.
I'm just saying.
You heard about that, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I'm a girl. Like I said, I used to work at night and I used to drive at home alone all the time. And it's like, I would not pull over for a cop. No fucking way.
Okay.
I've heard all kind of terrible things. Not all cops are bad, obviously. Most of them are fine, but it's like, there's always...
So how are you going to deal with that? You just going to
You have to go somewhere where there's other people around.
There's other people, okay, yeah.
And like I said, there's even a protocol where you can, like, fucking call, like, especially if you're a woman, like, driving on your own, you need to, like, call, like, the fucking police station in your town or whatever and tell them, look, there's a cop following me, but I don't want to pull over because I don't know if it's a real cop or if it's a rogue cop or he's going to rape me or whatever. So it's like, I'm going somewhere where there's, like, a whole bunch of people, like, a whole bunch of witnesses.
Yeah.
And that's what you have to do. Because I got pulled over a couple times when I was coming home from work, like at 2 or 3 in the morning.
Yeah.
And it's like, I had to pull in front of, like, the 24/7 fucking convenience store where people were in there just in case. Because I've had bullshit. I had a cop pull me over at 3:30 in the morning, and he said that the light over my license plate was out.
Yeah.
And it wasn't.
He made that up.
Yep.
Saw you, wanted to talk to you.
Yep.
Okay.
So I'm glad that I pulled into a 24/7 convenience store where there were people, because that was the story that he gave me.
Yeah.
Oh, the light over your license plate is out. And then I looked later and I'm like, yeah, no, it's not.
Okay.
Fuck off.
Let's get back to the case.
Seriously. So so these charges, yeah. Well, that's awesome. That's awesome you're telling
I'm not
me
guilty
I'm
of it.
getting sidetracked.
Okay. All right.
You're like the king of
I gotta
sidetracks.
fucking okay. I'm just playing the game.
Yeah.
I'm just playing the game. This is okay.
So apparently these charges later got dropped because the guy that Jackie D, the guy that was bringing the charges, apparently attempted to blackmail John Wayne Gacy. Like he was going to give him money and say he was going to drop the charges. So there was this big thing. So those charges got dropped. Now, so at this point, Gacy marries his girlfriend Carol Hoff, and her and her two daughters move into Gacy's house, his infamous Summerdale Avenue house. Now, Gacy, by this time, had quit his job. He had been a short-order cook, and he started his own construction business, which he called Painting, Decorating, and Maintenance, or PDM Contractors.
Okay. So
this was doing minor kind of shit. They would paint signs. They would fix little shit around your house or whatever. Now, later on, the business would kind of grow a bit bigger, and he would do interior design and whatnot. Now, by 1978, apparently the business was making quite a bit of money, $200,000 a year, in those days money, which that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money now.
It is, but in 1978, that was even more money. That was probably
$500,000.
That's probably $500,000 or $1 million nowadays. So one thing that Gacy would do, though, is that once he started this contracting company, in order to ostensibly keep down costs, he would hire high school kids, high school boys.
Yeah. Once they had a tight booty.
Yeah,
Once
pretty
had,
much. He would pay them twice the going rate, so it was very attractive, for teenage boys who were just in high school and stuff.
It was attractive for the teenage boys. It was attractive for John.
Yeah, clearly.
Yeah, of course.
So 1973, he takes one of these teenage employees to Florida to go check out a property, and apparently Gacy raped this youth in the hotel room.
Damn.
So apparently this kid was would not stay in the hotel room and went out and slept on the fucking beach in Florida like you do.
Yeah.
So so apparently they get back to Chicago, and the kid drives to Gacy's house and tries to beat Gacy's ass.
Yeah.
Again, as you would.
Like you're supposed to do, yeah.
Yeah. And his wife's mom came and tried she didn't know what was going on, so she tried to she thought this was just some
crazy
hoodlum.
Shit, hoodlum.
And so she tried to drive him away, and Gacy tried to kind of say that it's oh well, he worked for me and he thought that I didn't pay him enough, and that's why he was trying to beat me up, not that he had tried to rape him and stuff. So whatever. So like I said, Gacy at this point, it's this is 1974. He's trying to become, it almost seems like he's trying to become he wants to become accepted by the community. He's very active in the JCs. He's very active in charity drives. Like I said, he starts dressing up as a clown, pogo and patches. He has the whole, all the clown stuff. He goes and entertains at children's hospitals. He gets involved in politics. He does all this kind of stuff where it just seems like he's desperately trying to win approval from the community. I guess because he couldn't get it from his dad, which is sad enough. Yeah. But it seems like that was kind of the whole focus of his life. he was trying to get acceptance from people. And in a way, it seems to have worked because, I mean, everyone in the community just seemed to think he was a great guy, right? Like I said, they didn't really know, like, anything of it. So he gets all up in, like, the Democratic Party in Chicago. Like, he's on, like, the street lighting committee, which doesn't sound like it's really that big of a deal. But, you know, he was excited about it, I guess. He also got up to the title of precinct captain. He got appointed the director of Chicago's Polish Constitution Day Parade, which in Chicago was a big deal because there's a lot of Polish immigrants there. His grandparents were Polish-German immigrants also, so he was very active in the Polish community. So he kind of gets to be in the parade and everything like that. During this parade, very famously, he was photographed with then First Lady Rosalind Carter. Damn. That was in 1970.
See, he's on the Polish parade. He's probably got like he's carrying a big old flag or a big old statue of Thaddeus Kosciuszko.
Or somebody.
You know who he is?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's got a big old Thaddeus Kosciuszko fucking statue and shit.
Yeah.
Poland #1. Thaddeus was an awesome man, though. I like that. Yeah.
So, like I said, he's on, like, he's kind of a big deal, like, you know, not super famous or anything, but everybody in the Chicago community kind of knows who he is because he's kind of, like, up on the, you know, all in the community and shit. So, apparently in 1975, Gacy informs his wife that he is bisexual. Now, apparently, this is what I've heard. He has sex with his wife on Mother's Day, and then he tells her, that's the last time we're having sex.
What? You have the right to do that? You can just kind of like, oh, this is the last time. We're going to be married, but this is the last time.
Well, I guess you have the right to do that, but...
this is going to work out? This is how this is going to work out?
It's kind of one of those things where it's like, it's not like against the law, but like...
I can't understand what a man's thinking is. You could be like, oh, by the way, this is the last time we're having sex. We're not going to have sex anymore.
Yeah.
Does he tell her she can do whatever she wants?
I bet not. I don't know, like, I don't know, but... Knowing this type of dude, I would assume not.
No, she's got to remain loyal
because
to
you know how dudes are. They're just like, well, you can't have sex with anybody, but I can. Yeah, that's kind of how dudes do.
Don't throw me in that.
I'm not throwing you. I'm just saying
dudes
in general. That'll be their thing where it's just like, well, you know, you can't because you're like a filthy hussy.
I'm reasonable, though. You know, I understand that you know, that a woman is a mortal woman. You know, they have
We're all human beings here. We're all human beings here.
Yeah, they all have that. Yeah.
We all have needs.
Be like, look, you stay here. I'm gonna go fucking get me some ass. Okay. Now you be good, all right?
Yeah, you just stay here and don't do right anything. Here, right? I'm gonna go out and bang everyone that moves, but you're not allowed to.
You watch the kids.
Yeah, that's kind of what I feel like. Well, that's kind of what I feel like. These type of dudes, that's where they're coming from.
Yeah, that's your role.
Like they can do it.
Yeah,
but you're not allowed to.
That's your role in life.
Because I feel like they don't. It like we were talking about the fucking essay and shit like that before. I don't think they see women as fully human. It doesn't seem like
they're like fucking chattel.
Yeah, it almost seems like you're just like
there's something
cows.
You can get. Yeah, you stay here. Yeah.
And I'm gonna go out and just do whatever. So he apparently informed his wife of this, and then started going out most evenings and not coming home. Gee, wonder where he was. He told his wife he'd been working late. Now his wife apparently saw Gacy hanging out with a lot of teenage boys. Also, she began to find a bunch of like gay porn around the house, which she was kind of upset about. Apparently, the wife also found men's wallets, driver's licenses, that kind of stuff around the house, and started to get a little suspicious. But this is your husband, so I don't think that's immediately what you jump to. Like, my husband's a serial killer. You know what I mean? Especially not back then. So I guess she thought it was weird, but she didn't like really do much about it. So, I mean, she did actually kind of get up in his face and be like, hey, what the fuck is all this stuff? And he just said, oh, well, that's none of your business. So, they divorced in 1976, not surprisingly.
You might have noticed a jump in the damn video because I paused it to go eat those pork chops.
They were good.
They were good, yeah. They were really good.
We were waiting like while we were recording it. We were
I was
waiting for the
cooking them
timer
while
to go off.
All right.
Yeah, they were delicious. All right, so as I said, we are talking about, we're finally getting to John Wayne Gacy's murders.
Yeah, this is where it gets interesting.
Before
We were just bullshitting. I was just making things up.
Well, he was doing terrible shit before.
Yeah, okay.
I'm just saying. This is like the lead up to the whole shit.
This is
So
the
this
lead
is
up.
his first alleged murder. Like I'm saying, he might have murdered more people before this. We don't know. So this happened in very early January of 1972. Apparently, Gacy picks up a 16-year-old boy named Timothy Jack McCoy from the Greyhound bus terminal in Chicago. Now, this boy had been traveling from Michigan to Omaha. Now, Gacy said, hey, I'll take you around like a sightseeing tour of Chicago, and then you can stay at my house, and then you can like go the rest of your way later on.
And the 16-year-old boy fell for that shit?
Well, he's 16.
I wouldn't
He's
have fallen
traveling
for that
around.
shit at 16.
Well, this is 1972, though.
Yeah. I'd be like, you fucking perv.
I don't know if people knew that back then. But yeah, so he's like, yeah, you can stay at my house. I'll drive you to the station in the morning. You can catch the bus and go on to Omaha or whatever. Gacy had a tendency to blame other people for his actions.
Yeah.
So his story was that he picked up this kid. He admitted that he picked up the kid and he'd taken him back to the house and whatnot. He says that he woke up the next morning and found the kid standing in his bedroom doorway with a knife.
Yeah, I ain't buying it.
So it was like self-defense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not buying it.
He's just trying to explain why he did it.
That's what I mean. So he's saying, well, because Gacy apparently had like a scar on his forearm, and he's like, yeah, look, that's what that kid did. He like cut me with a knife and everything like that.
Maybe why he was struggling for his life.
That's kind of, yeah, I'm leaning toward that, yeah. Right. So he says that he killed this kid in self-defense.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Those dangerous 16-year-old little white boys.
Right, yeah. So he kills this kid, and he buries him in the crawl space.
Yeah.
And covers his grave with a layer of concrete.
Yeah.
Now, after he was arrested, Gacy reportedly said that after he had killed Timothy McCoy, who was apparently his first victim, he felt, quote, totally drained, but also he'd had like the best orgasm ever. And then he realized that death was the ultimate thrill. That is another quote. So later on that month, he decided he was going to commit another crime. Now, this victim was never identified. He was a teenage boy. All they know about him was that he was between 14 and 18 years old and that he had medium brown hair. And that Gacy picked him up somewhere, strangled him, and then stored his body in the closet prior to burial. Now, Gacy later said that fluid started leaking out of the kid's mouth and nose as he was in the closet because it's a corpse, yo.
Yeah.
And it was like messing up his carpet.
Right.
So he's like, okay, well, from now on, I'm going to start putting like cloth rags or their own underwear in their mouths to keep that from happening.
Right.
Like to keep the bodies from leaking.
And how long had he been in there before that started happening?
I don't know.
Okay.
This is an alarming lack of foresight.
It tells me he's also a damn necrophile. He's keeping the body around.
He's giving me some Dahmer vibes on this shit.
Yeah, he's
now.
keeping the body around.
Like he's basically keeping them in the closet because I know that one of them he kept under his bed for at least 24 hours before he buried it in the crawl space because he did like bury a bunch in the crawl space. And then later, famously, when he ran out of room in the crawl space after 26 bodies, he started dumping them in the Des Plaines River. I feel like he probably kept some of them around
I think
for
he's keeping them
those
around.
purposes.
But
I don't think, as far as I know, he never admitted to that. But like we said with the Ted Bundy thing,
They always lie
about that.
that.
They'll admit to rape and murder and everything else,
they
but
won't admit to
necrophilia, that's like...
It's like crossing the line.
Yeah, that's like just a little bit too far, that's very interesting.
There must be something about it that is something about doing that even to them is really fucking odd.
But shit, man, once you've already like raped and murdered somebody, it's like you'd think necrophilia would be like no big.
There's something about the act of it that is, in a way, kind of even crossing the line for them. They don't want to talk about it. They want to deny that. That's some weird shit.
I feel like that might have happened in this situation.
That must be fucking... They must be kind of repulsed by it in a way or something. But they're drawn to it. It's just weird. I'm just not gonna believe that you just keep somebody in your closet for 3 or 4, maybe 5 days or a week just because. There's a motive for that.
There has to be a reason you keep that.
And
around.
With these guys,
why would you keep that around?
With these guys, there's always the whole thing is a sexual motive. So they're fucking that dead body. That's why it's in there. That's why they keep it. And it started to leak because it was getting old. He kept it in there for too long.
Yeah. And
he knew it was leaking because he kept checking on it. What was he thinking? Well, he's in there fucking getting that little kid. After he's dead. And he's going, this is getting kind of old. But he wants to get a couple more days out of it. That's some weird shit.
Well, yeah. I mean, from a serial killer standpoint, they're probably thinking, well, I went to all the trouble.
Right, yeah. I might as well max it out.
Kidnapping and raping and murdering this person. I might as well, like you said, maximize.
I'm going to max this out. Right. That's what
the pleasure from it.
That's what they're thinking. And then they're probably going to be like the Green River Killer, fucking, what was his name?
Gary Ridgway.
Yeah, Ridgway. It could be like Ridgway, where they kind of build up a tolerance to the smell.
I guess you would after a while.
So
like you do
they keep going back in the summer, like a month later, that shit's rotten. You know what I mean? They haven't said, it's going to be some fucking shit like that, man. Yeah. Hell yeah.
That takes a special kind of person. And by special, I mean, that kind of special.
What was weird is that the investigators at the time didn't grill him on that. You'd be like, why are you keeping the body in there for that amount of time?
Yeah, as far as I know, there's not like a lot of
and then they're like
necrophilia talk about Gacy, even though there was about Bundy.
Yeah, and then they were like,
even though he denied it.
Well, why are you putting the damn underwear in the mouth so you can keep it in there for a few more days? You know what I mean?
So the fluid doesn't leak out.
Yeah. You're gonna leak your fluid into this, so the fluid doesn't leak out of that. They're gonna play that kind of game. Why?
Yeah.
Why not just bury it?
Because he was burying them under his house.
Eventually,
so it's not like
he's doesn't have time.
Right.
It doesn't I can't run this one outside. They're watching. No, he's gonna put them underneath the house. Why doesn't he do it immediately while it's still fresh? Well, that's the answer.
Yeah.
He's gonna use it up. He's gonna maximize it.
He definitely does seem like that kind of killer.
Yeah.
Where
he's going back. He's using that as a sex doll. He's going back, putting in positions and all kinds of shit.
Gross.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's fucking rotten.
So this body, which, as far as I know, to this day has never been identified.
Yeah.
Was found out in his backyard later on.
Well, it hasn't been identified, but they know who that
barbecue
is.
Pit.
Somebody's looking for him. Somebody's looking. They just never matched up.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
That body to.
It's like obviously that's somebody.
Somebody was looking for it,
but they just don't know who it is yet.
I don't know which one.
So at this stage, 1975, apparently Gacy's business, his contracting business, is very successful. He's working very many hours. Now, what he also started to do, and he freely admitted this in 1975, was he started basically cruising for teenage boys. He even calls this his cruising years or his cruising time period or whatever.
Yeah, they all do that.
Yeah, so the business that he was running, like I said, he ostensibly said that it was because he was saving money in taxes and payroll and shit like that because he was hiring high school kids, but you know what the real fucking deal with that was. So he hires a 15-year-old named Anthony Antonucci. Now, this kid was hired in May of 1975. Now, in July of 1975, Gacy turns up at this kid's house when the kid was home alone. And the kid was apparently homesick because I guess he'd hurt his foot at work or whatever. So Gacy brings over a bunch of booze and gets the kid drunk then wrestled him to the floor and cuffed his hands behind his back. Now, because one of the cuffs was like not all that tight, so Anthony got loose. And so he started. Now, Anthony was on the high school wrestling team, so he wasn't a pushover. Now, he like got his hand free, and he jumped on Gacy when Gacy came back into the room and basically wrestled him to the ground and got the handcuff key off of him.
The one that got away.
Yeah, apparently.
Yeah.
So he's like, okay, so Gacy's like, all right, well, I'll leave if you take the handcuffs. Because apparently Anthony had taken the handcuffs off himself and put them back on Gacy.
Yeah.
And then he was kind of like, so, good for that kid. So apparently, like Gacy says to the kid, and this is what he remembers, he says, not only are you the one who got out of the cuffs, you got them on me. So that was like a big deal to him.
Damn.
A week later, which was July 31st, 1975, another one of Gacy's employees, John Butkovich, who was 18 years old, disappeared. Now, a day before this, Butkovich had threatened Gacy because Gacy apparently owed him 2 weeks back pay. So there had been like a huge fight about this. Now, later on after Gacy was arrested, he admitted that he had lured Butkovich to his house while his wife and stepchildren were away in Arkansas visiting relatives. And he said that he, like, got him to the house. He's like, oh, well, we'll talk about the pay that I'm supposed to give you and that I'm not going to give you. We're going to, like, have a meeting about that. So Butkovich comes to the house. And once he gets there, he does the thing where he's like, he did that trick where he's like, hey, here's that magic trick and with the handcuffs and everything like that. Trick, right. And apparently he did that. So that worked. And at one point, like, Butkovich got strangled. And he was buried under the floor of his garage.
Now, do we know what he did to any of these guys after he strangled them? Or because one guy got away. There was all kinds of, like, torture and shit before.
He did do all kinds of sexual torture. So you can assume that because a couple of people that got away or that were released by Gacy before they were killed, you can assume that he was probably doing that.
Doing that to all of
them.
them.
He killed as well. So, apparently, he murdered Butkovich. And he left the kid's car, which was a Dodge sedan. He left it in a parking lot with the kid's wallet still in there and the keys in the ignition.
Look at Pookie. Hey, stop it.
Ow. Oh, Pookie. Ow. She's going to be on the show.
Yeah, she's mad.
What? Yeah, she is mad.
She's mad. Yeah,
you want to talk into the microphone, Poke? No. She's like, why you go tear up the paper over there? Mommy lets you tear
so what happened? Get back to the show.
All right. So
I got her.
Yeah. So Butkovich's Dodge sedan was found abandoned in a parking lot with the wallet and the car keys still in the ignition. Now, his family thought this was a little weird, as you would. So, since Gacy was one of the last people to have seen him, because apparently the kid had told him, and he's like, hey, I'm going to John Wayne Gacy's house, who he had been working for. He's like, I'm going to talk to him about the back pay that he owes me. So, the kid's father calls Gacy, and Gacy says, oh, well, I'll help you look for him, but he just, ran off. You know how kids do today. So that's kind of like what he said. He just said, yeah, they did come here and we talked about it, but we got to a compromise and then he took off. That's basically what he said. And nobody followed up on that. To be fair to this kid's parents, they were super suspicious and they kept calling the cops and said, hey, why don't you go investigate this guy? And the cops didn't really do it. Like I said, it's the 70s.
They didn't look into his background, I guess.
Not until much later.
Right.
Which
Well, back in those days,
That's
there wasn't
bad.
some kind of centralized computer records. I mean,
Yeah.
you probably wouldn't have found anything on him. He would, it'd probably been like an 8-year quest of trying to find the guy's damn record back then.
Yeah. True.
Was it another state he was convicted in?
It was. Yeah, it was.
Yeah, they probably wouldn't have found it.
That's what I mean. They don't look unless they're looking specifically for that.
Yeah.
So which is a shame. Like, it's easier nowadays.
They
Like
would
I
have
said,
to know the state where
it's
the conviction
harder
was.
for you
Yeah.
to get away with shit nowadays.
Yeah.
So apparently, he's with his second wife at this point. Now, they have a huge fight about, apparently she was supposed to like keep all the books for his business and she didn't do it right or some kind of shit. And so they had a huge fight about that. And then they filed for divorce in October of 1975. Now, the wife kept living at the house and then until February of 1976. And then her and the two daughters, because she had two daughters from a previous marriage, and then they moved to their own apartment. So it's funny because the grounds that she gave for divorce were that he had like fucked around her with other women, even though I'm pretty sure that she knew
It was boys.
that it was boys.
Yeah.
I mean, he did like early on, like he did seem to like fuck around with like female prostitutes and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
it's possible he could have still been doing that, but it does seem like
Wasn't what
boys
he's
were
looking
kind of-
for.
Yeah, it does seem like boys were kind of most of his thing. Now, after he got divorced in March of 1976, it seems like even though his neighbors had been kind of like, thinking he was a cool guy and shit like that. Like I said, he had barbecues and all this other kind of shit. So they thought he was just like a normal guy, but they did notice that he started acting a little weird like after his wife took off. They said, he was like out at all hours. It's like, there was always like young dudes like hanging around the house and shit like that. And one neighbor even reported that they thought they heard muffled screaming coming from his house. Although I guess it wasn't bad enough that they thought to report it.
Right.
But, just saying. So from 1976 to 1978, after Gacy's wife left, is what he called his cruising years. And this was the years where he did most of his murders because he had the house to himself. And he could just basically, hey, the woman left.
Yeah.
So that means you could just do whatever the fuck you want.
Damn.
Yeah. So this was when the majority of his murders were committed. So a month after his divorce is finalized, in March of 1976, he abducted and murdered an 18-year-old named Daryl Sampson, who was last seen alive in Chicago in early April of 1976. A little more than a month later, there was a 15-year-old named Randall Reffitt. He was walking home from high school, and he disappeared. Later, he was found gagged with a cloth, and he died of asphyxiation. Now, a few hours after he disappeared, there was a 14-year-old boy named Samuel Stapleton who also disappeared as he was walking home from his sister's house. These two children were later found buried in the same grave underneath fucking Gacy's house. June 3rd, 1976. Gacy killed a 17-year-old named Michael Bonin, who was traveling from Chicago to Waukegan, Illinois. He was found strangled with a ligature and buried in the crawlspace 10 days later, so he's not leaving a lot of space in between these. He's just basically going on a fucking rampage because his wife left. So you see how that goes. So 16-year-old kid named William Carroll. He was also abducted and murdered, and he was buried under Gacy's kitchen. Between June 13th and August 6th, there were 3 unidentified children who were abducted and murdered. Like I said, they still don't know who they are to this day. They were between 16 and 17 years old. During this time period, Gacy also killed a 16-year-old named James Hackinson, who he was last known to be alive on August 5th because he called his family. There was also a 17-year-old named Rick Johnston, last seen alive on August 6th. What are you doing?
Knock it off.
Grab it.
Go.
Now, in July of 1976, late July, so Gacy has been, this is one of his, like, shticks, is that he'll, offer work with his contracting company, which was a successful contracting company, to teenage boys. And he was paying, at the time, the princely sum of $5 an hour, which was, like, twice as much as most other places were paying. What are you doing?
She's trying to attack the paper.
Yeah, she's trying to attack paper. Which is twice as much as most places were paying. So it's like, you can see how kids would fall for that. Because he was like a respected member of the community, and he had a company, which he did. And he was like, so he was hiring people. So he hires this 18-year-old named David Cram. Now, David Cram moves into his house in August of 1976. Now, the day after he was hired, Gacy does his trick of like, hey, here's a trick, and I'm like gonna put like fucking handcuffs on you, right? So apparently the cuffs are on this guy, and Gacy says to him, hey, I'm gonna rape you. David Cram says, yeah, I don't think so, because he'd been in the army. So he turns the shit around on him and fucking gets back at Gacy. So he gets out of the handcuffs.
How does he do that?
I don't know. I guess he just like muscled his way out of there.
Yeah, muscling way out of handcuffs.
Yeah. Now the weird thing about it though is that
else where he like went under like that.
Is that David Cram like still kept working for the guy like afterward, like for a long time afterward, because apparently he was still living there like a month later.
He didn't take it seriously, I guess.
I guess not, because Gacy comes to his bedroom door and says, well, you better let me rape you, or, you don't know who I am, and that kind of crap.
Right.
And so David's like, yeah, whatever. It's like, I don't think he really took it all that seriously.
Must not have.
He didn't seem to. Like I said, he did leave the company at some point, but he still did some work for the guy. So I guess he wasn't seeing him as a threat, apparently. Now, after...
He was a short little guy.
He was, yeah.
Yeah, so...
I mean, like, he didn't seem all that intimidating.
No,
like I said,
he's like, what, 5'5" or something?
He just seemed like a normal dude. So another guy moves in, Michael Rossi. He moves into the house as well. Now, between August and October of 1976, 2 other unidentified males are thought to have been killed in this house. One of the, like, William Carroll was buried there. He had been murdered on June 13th. And there was also the body of Rick Johnston, who was last seen on August 6th. There was another unidentified male who, like I said, as far as I know, is still unidentified. He was between 15 and 24 years old, had light brown hair, and he was buried, like, in between the 2 of them. So they think that he might have been killed between the 2 of them. Now, another thing that Gacy would do is that the dudes that were working for him, there were already bodies buried in the crawl space, right? And he would tell them to go down to the crawl space and like dig trenches down there, because he was like putting tile down there. So he's making like these fucking teenage boys and dig essentially graves. They didn't know that at the time. But it's like, he's like, yeah, I'm going to like tile down there like eventually. So go down there and dig some trenches. But nobody like realized what was going on. So in late October of 1976, he kidnapped and killed 2 other teenage boys, Kenneth Parker and Michael Marino, both at the same time. I guess he saw them outside a restaurant and lured them into his car. They were both strangled and buried in the same crawl space. 2 days after that, a 19-year-old employee of his, William Bundy, also disappeared. After he had told his family that he was going to a party, he was also strangled and buried in the crawl space. Yet another employee of Gacy's, not real smart, this dude. He just keeps like hiring teenage boys and then...
Yeah, like they'll never put it together that if you
Yeah,
work for
well,
this dude,
I mean, he wasn't that dumb, because it took him a really long time to like put it together, weirdly. Because another one of his employees disappeared in December of 1976. This was 17-year-old Gregory Godzik. Now, his girlfriend, he had actually like dropped his girlfriend off like outside her house. They had had a date or whatever. And that was the last time he was seen. He had been working for Gacy for 3 weeks when he disappeared. And he had also, prior to his disappearance, had told his family that he had dug trenches under there. So he was apparently digging his own grave, which is fucked up. They found his car abandoned later on. Now, the shitty thing, like I said, and this seems to be like a kind of common thread in why they didn't catch Gacy for so long, is that he would basically say, oh, these teenage boys in the 70s, they just run away. And like the cops,
run away, you never know.
Yeah, and the cops were like, okay.
They're like, yeah, I guess so. It's the 70s.
Which I guess a lot of them did, but it's like, you have to kind of like question, there are so many teenage boys like working for this guy that are disappearing.
Yeah. You
would think that
it's not
somebody would have put that shit together.
Right.
I mean, this is a very brief time period.
It was another time. It was another
I guess so. So only a month later, January 20th, 1977, there's another guy named John Zyke. He was 19-year-old. And he was like a friend of a couple of the other dudes that had worked for Gacy. He also disappeared. Now, he was actually going to sell his car to Gacy, or so that was like the story. And then he was never seen again after that. So over the next couple of months, several other men who were either employed by Gacy or in Gacy's circle mysteriously disappeared. You can probably guess where they all ended up.
Underneath that damn basement, underneath those floorboards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
During this time period, he also became engaged to this woman that he kind of knew, but that was like broken off after only a couple of months. And only a month after that, he apparently killed another young man named Matthew Bowman. Now, in late 1977, December 30th, he actually kidnapped a 19-year-old named Robert Donnelly from a Chicago bus stop. This young man was raped and tortured and had his head repeatedly dunked into a bathtub until he passed out, and then Gacy would revive him, and he kept like doing that. And apparently he did it so many times that the guy just kept saying to Gacy, just go ahead and kill me, like get it over with, just because it was so fucking horrible.
Right.
And apparently Gacy said to him, I'll get around to it.
Damn. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's fucking special. So now, like I said, there are so many, I can't even like, I feel bad that I can't like name all the victims. There's just like so fucking many.
There's
33
yeah.
people.
Now, how do
and
they
some
know,
of them are not identified still.
how
I
do
think
they-
there's 6 of them.
how do they know that he did that? Wait, John must have said what happened to him.
He did, but like they found all the bodies.
Yeah, but I'm talking about the drowning the guy.
Yeah. Well, yeah. He
John
said
was the
about that.
only witness there for that.
Yeah.
He survived it.
Although, and I'll get into this in a bit, some people have theorized that he might have had an accomplice or more than one accomplice. Because they note that some people that they know that John Wayne Gacy killed disappeared when he was provably out of town. And one of the victims who survived said that he had seen someone else like watching his torture.
Yeah, I remember that one. Yeah.
Yeah, so some people have thought that maybe he had like fucking accomplices.
Right. Which,
not crazy. I don't know. So March of 1978, John Wayne Gacy lures a 26-year-old named Jeffrey Rignall into his car. Now he chloroforms the guy, and then he drives him to the house. He was raped and tortured with various instruments, including lit candles, whips, and whatnot. Every time he would wake up, John Wayne Gacy would chloroform him again. And then Gacy drives him to Lincoln Park, and he dumped him out. Apparently, he thought he was dead, but he wasn't. So Rignall wakes up, and he gets to his girlfriend's apartment. Now, what ended up happening with this, and this guy probably contributed more to Gacy getting caught than anybody else, because of all the chloroform that had been used. One, his face was all burned. from the chloroform. Also, he had been given so much chloroform that his liver was permanently damaged. And, as he would be, he was really fucking pissed off about that. And he wanted to catch the person that did this to him. So, for many months afterward, he staked out the area where he was taken from looking for that fucking car. And eventually, he saw it. Because Gacy had a very distinctive, it was like a black Cadillac or something like that. So Rignall would just like sit at this fucking highway exit waiting for this car. And one day he saw it. And when he saw it, he wrote down the fucking license plate number and he reported it to the cops. So good for him.
Yep.
Like I said, he was fucking mad, as you would be. His, like I said, his liver was destroyed like permanently. So Gacy gets arrested on July 15th. And this is a battery charge. Because they got him on the Rignall incident, but he didn't die. So it was just like, they didn't know or they didn't have enough evidence to like, you know, get him on any of the other murders. They just had him on this kind of shit. So he gets arrested for that. So now, other than this guy like fucking staking out the dude, it could be argued that one of the things that contributed to Gacy finally getting arrested, because this is kind of shitty, and we talk about this a lot when we talk about like serial killers that target prostitutes and stuff like that. I kind of feel like a lot of his earlier victims, while not, I mean, they weren't homeless or anything like that, but it seems like the public perception of them was, oh, they were just runaways.
Like on the fringes of society.
Or whatever. Yeah. But the fact is that one of the things that got him caught was the fact that he kidnapped a kind of a middle-class kid in Robert Priest. Now, the fucked up thing was Robert Priest he was 15 years old. He worked at a pharmacy. And his mom was picking him up from work. And the kid literally goes to his mom and says, hey, I got to talk to this guy about a job, who is John Wayne Gacy. Like I said, he was offering like $5 an hour, which was a lot of money back in 1978. And he's like, I'll be right back. And the mom is like, sure. And she's like wandering around the pharmacy, like waiting for the kid. And then clearly the kid has not come back. So Gacy just like fucking snatched him from the pharmacy where he worked while his mom was fucking waiting for him.
I wonder how he did that.
Huh?
I wonder how he did that.
Who fucking knows? Well, like I said, because he was a contractor and he was like, oh, well, you know, I have a job for you. That was how he got a lot of kids into his car. And then he had like chloroform, he had rope, he had handcuffs, he had all this other kind of shit. So then he would like fucking disable you once you got in the car or once you got to his house. He was all about, and from everything that I've heard about him, he was very good at convincing people to do what he wanted. Yeah. Because he seemed very normal.
He must have got the kid in a position, then chloroformed him or something, handcuffed him, put him in a car.
I kind of feel like that's probably what he did.
Put him in a
So it's kind of shitty because it seems like the fact of this kid disappearing, I'm not saying that some of the cops in Chicago didn't suspect that there was some shit going on, because they said, look, there's a lot of like disappearances revolving around this guy or like in this dude's circle. But it almost like, it seemed like it was this dude.
I don't remember Gacy as being physically powerful at all, though. I remember he was kind of dumpy looking, wasn't he?
He was, and but like I said, chloroform and like other kind of shit like that.
Wasn't he like 5'5", 5'6", 5'4",
I have no idea. I have no idea. But yeah, so it really does seem like it's sad, but so many people had disappeared, but it seemed like it took Robert Priest's disappearance before they really, even though, like I said, to their credit, a lot of cops had been suspecting, but they couldn't really do anything about it.
Well, they were just working class kids and they were just disappearing. There was no bodies. So
and that's
what couldn't open a damn investigation.
And some of the parents like complained, and I've seen some like documentaries. Some of the parents were complaining. They're like, "Look, we went to the cops and said, look, our kid wouldn't do that," and they're like, "Oh, they just ran away. That's teenage boys do that shit all the time." That's basically what they said to them. But when Robert Priest disappeared and his family was like, "Look, he would not do that. He didn't have any reason to disappear. He had a job, he had a bright future, he had like all this stuff coming up. And
well, that
so,
added credibility to it.
Yeah.
Could have been that Gacy was going after kids that kind of had rough homes anyway.
He was.
So he's going like, well, if I take this one, they'll just think that he ran away from that house.
Yeah.
And so...
And it seems that the police did kind of believe that for a while.
Right.
But once Robert Priest disappeared, finally the cops were like, look, his family is like thinking this is not, kosher. And they were already beginning to suspect because there was so much like chatter about Gacy, like at the fringes of all these disappearances. Right. So they're kind of like thinking maybe we should do something about it. So finally they do a background check and they find that he had served a prison sentence in Iowa for sodomy on the 15-year-old boy, as previously mentioned. So using this as, their evidence, they got a warrant to search his house, and they find all kind of suspicious things. They find a high school class ring, which is engraved with initials JAS, which was the initials of another person that had been missing. They found a bunch of driver's licenses. They found some weird porn. They found a bunch of handcuffs. They found a 2x4 with holes drilled in the ends, books on homosexuality, books on pederasty. They found a bunch of male clothing that obviously would not fit John Wayne Gacy. They found some guns and shit like that. And most significantly, they found a photo receipt from the pharmacy where Robert Priest worked. Later on, they found out that one of Robert Priest's co-workers had put this photo receipt into the pocket of Robert Priest's jacket. So this photo receipt being at Gacy's house gave them probable cause, because they said it's like, how would he have this at his house?
Right.
If he had not interacted with him on this particular day. So at this stage, they decide they're going to put Gacy under surveillance. Now, the thing about Gacy, though, and I feel like he was like super cocky and shit like that. He knew he was under surveillance because apparently the cops weren't all that sneaky about it. So he would do shit like I said, Telltale Heart style. He would like invite them to come in the house and have dinner with him. He would invite them to bars and have drinks and shit like that. Almost like daring them.
They didn't notice the smell from that coming from the...
It's weird because later on, one of the cops who had searched the house, the first time, like when they found all this other stuff, he did say that he smelled something weird, but it didn't really occur to him at the time that it could be a bunch of bodies.
Right.
Which...
Well, he had all that lime on him, I guess.
I guess, but it's like, he just thought it smelled bad, and he asked Gacy about it, but like I said, Gacy just said, oh, it's like really damp down there, and blah-de-blah. So apparently, after all of this surveillance, the whole time that Gacy was under surveillance, they could see that he was visibly stressed out. They said he was gaining weight, he was like not shaving, he was like looking like he wasn't sleeping, and all this other kind of stuff. So they could tell that he was worried about some shit. So they have him in custody, and this is December 20th. And Gacy goes to his lawyer's office, and they're talking about some civil suit that they were trying to settle with, like, one of the disappearances or whatever. Now, Gacy asks for some whiskey, which they give him. And then he says to his lawyer that the boy is dead. One of the boys they were asking about, his body is in the river. He then said, I've been the judge, jury, and executioner of many, many people. At which point his lawyer promptly shit himself.
Right, yeah.
Because he wasn't expecting... This was Gacy's lawyer, you
right.
have to imagine. And suddenly Gacy is saying, I did all this shit. Yeah, basically. So he says that, there's a whole bunch of them buried in my crawl space under my house. And after I ran out of space there, I started dumping them in the Des Plaines River. Now, he tried to mitigate it somewhat by saying that they had all tried to hustle him or lie to him or something like that. Like they all like fucking had it coming.
30 plus justifiable homicides.
Pretty much.
That's what he's trying to say.
Yeah.
He didn't tell anybody about it, didn't report it.
He's basically saying that they all
deserved it.
Had it coming. Yeah.
He's tripping.
So after he said all that, they searched his home yet again.
Mm-hmm.
Duh. No. And started looking in the crawl space and under the floorboards and started finding all kind
skeletons and bodies.
Of fucking bodies. Yeah. Why they didn't find them before? Who knows?
Well, who'd have thought to look, I guess.
I guess not.
Back in those days, you know.
Yeah, it's like the fucked up thing. It's
They'd
like,
never heard of John Wayne Gacy, so they didn't check the damn
So they didn't
space.
know. It's like, they start looking in the house and they said, the one guy that I saw in the documentary, he's like, we fucking peeled up the floorboard and it's like, we just started looking, there was just fucking skeletons everywhere. 26, 27 of them. Yeah. And it's like, after that, like after they found all those people, they were still looking for Robert Priest, who was, the missing person that had kind of like engendered this whole fucking investigation. They didn't end up finding him until like much later on. He wasn't buried in the house because, like I said, Gacy, this is so fucked up. He ran out of room under his house. He said at first, he's like, oh, well, I was going to put them in the attic, but then I thought they would like drip all over everything.
Yeah.
So he's like, so I just thought I would put them under the fucking floor. And like, he just thought they were gone. He just like buried them under there, like threw some lime on there and didn't fucking think about it anymore.
Yeah.
People complained about the smell, but he just said, oh, the sump pump is backed up. Or he like came up with some excuse.
Yeah. Living on top of a cemetery.
Yeah, there's like fucking bodies underneath the fucking house. Holy crap. It's like, and then they went and dragged the Des Plaines River and found like several other victims that he had said were there. So
that can't be too common because they tear down houses all the time and don't find shit tons of dead bodies underneath them anymore.
Well, I hope not.
So this isn't something that happens fucking, just like talking about it. It's not common.
Well,
think about it.
That's good though.
Yeah, think about it.
That's good though.
No, I'm just thinking how many houses there are in the United States.
Yeah. How many of them have bodies under them?
Yeah, how many of them they tear down a year? And how many bodies do they find? You don't hear about it.
No. So, well, like I said, hopefully it's rare.
Yeah, I guess it's got to be very rare. Either that or if a house has been there for a long time, then I guess even eventually the skeleton itself in certain climates would kind of turn to dust, wouldn't it?
It takes a long time. No, because they found skeletons from like thousands of years ago.
From the Roman period, yeah.
So it's like they don't turn to dust. It takes like a really long time for that to happen.
I thought maybe if there was groundwater that might speed
it depends on the conditions.
Yeah.
But they found like decomposed and skeletonized bodies underneath this bitch's house. And they found so many that eventually they were just like, fuck it, and they just tore the whole house down.
Yeah. Oh, who's going to buy that house?
Yeah, who the fuck would want to live in that?
House? Yeah.
Gross.
And I remember seeing photographs of it and video of it. It wasn't all that, the house wasn't.
It was just like a normal just middle class looking house.
Of the house of that era. It wasn't much.
It just shocks me that this. That's the thing that always freaks me out is that people came to barbecues at his house. Like all his neighbors were like fucking, and there was like fucking dead kids. Under his house.
So what else? The
whole time.
How'd the trial go down? What happened next?
Well, basically, what happened at the trial was that he had already confessed, right? And he confessed to the 33. Like, they found all the bodies under his house, clearly. Although he kind of implied that it's like, oh, well, maybe, one of my roommates did it. Which maybe there's some, like, truth to that. Because some of the people, like, some of the victims did disappear while he was out of town. And one of the victims did say that they had seen someone else watching the shit. I don't know if I buy it or not because Gacy was kind of full of shit. But so there was that whole thing. So he tried to kind of say that it's like, oh, it was my roommate. They had keys to my house. They were like they were killing and burying people under my fucking house when I didn't know. It's like I find that hard to believe.
Yeah.
I don't know
imagine they
about you
laughed.
guys.
I imagine the cops laughed when he was saying that shit. He
But
was
yeah,
laughing.
so I'm not saying he didn't have accomplices. I'm just saying the fact that I'm totally innocent and people were just burying bodies under my house when I wasn't there and I didn't know anything about it. Yeah, I'm not buying that. Not at all. But he tried to do that. Now his defense, like I said, he had already confessed, but then like later he came out and said, yeah, I didn't do that shit. It was somebody else. So his defense, like, what could they do? They tried to pull insanity. However, yes, it's like they had all these psychologists, analyze him and stuff like that. Yes, he obviously had mental problems, clearly. But because of the testimony of a bunch of his employees that said that we had been down in the crawl space and we were digging, trenches that essentially were grave-sized. So that showed forethought, which means that you couldn't have necessarily been insane because you knew that you would have to, you were pre-planning and you knew you would have to get rid of the bodies and hide them, which means that you pretty much knew what you were doing. So during the trial, it's like, it seems like it only took a couple of hours for the jurors to pretty much come back and go, nah, son.
Yeah.
I think it took 2 hours.
There's no way you're going to talk your way out of that shit.
And this, like, he tried, but you know what I mean. So, yeah, they came back, and I think it only took another 2 hours before they came back during the sentencing phase of the trial and said, yeah, give him the fucking death penalty. Most of the victims' parents were all on board with that as well, because you have to imagine that a lot of the victims' families, their loved ones, their sons, had been missing for several years at this point, and they didn't know where they were. So it's like when all these bodies started turning up, like underneath this douche's house, they were waiting to see if that was their kid, because they knew that it's like that was the last person that had seen them, or that was, you know what I mean? So most of the, like, I saw a bunch of the mothers of the victims, like, on there, they were just like, yeah, just fucking fry the dude. Yeah. Like I said before, the weird thing about it, though, it's like fucking Gacy was on death row for 14 years. He went through, like, all the appeals that you go through. He apparently, like, he had a good time on death row, I guess. Like, a lot of the time that he was in there, he was really trying to, he studied law. He was, like, trying to wangle his way out of it, essentially, it seemed like.
He's fantasizing. Yeah.
And the whole time, even though he had confessed to, like, 33 murders, and they think he might have done more because he said something like, because they asked him, well, have you killed any more people? And he's like, oh, well, that's for you guys to find out, or something like that. Right. So it's like, whether he killed any more, I don't know. But they found 33 bodies that they know he did. But he was, like, trying to, like, fucking wangle his way out of it. So, like I said, he's like, appealing. He got denied every single time. Like I said, they finally gave him his fucking, final execution date, which was in 1994. And he talked to his fucking lawyer, saying he's still got the fucking papers, like he thinks he's going to be exonerated. And he's like, oh, I'll call you in like 2 hours or something. Like, even though his fucking death was like an hour before. Now, just like in the case of Ted Bundy, when he was executed by electric chair, there was a huge crowd outside the prison. And the majority of the people, there were some people there that were, like, opposed to the death penalty.
Oh, they were partying. I remember that.
But yeah, the majority of the people were, like, super. They even had had shirts made that said "No tears for the clown."
Yeah. They were having a tailgater. They were all out there.
They were just like
park.
when Ted Bundy got executed. I remember that because I was in Florida. They were out there just like fucking fry the dude,
whooping
or whatever. They were. So fucking Gacy goes to the chair, asserting his innocence right to the very end. Do you know what his last words on earth were?
What's that?
Kiss my ass.
Yeah.
Also, do you know what his last meal was?
What was that?
KFC fried chicken.
Okay. Yeah.
Which he had worked there for many years.
He wants some of that KFC.
I guess. Why would you? But isn't it messed up? It's like every time I'm kind of fascinated with what people that are going to the death, to the electric chair or whatever. it's like I'm always fascinated by what their last meal is. I guess a lot of other people are too. I guess that's why they tell people what it was. Because it's like, what would I eat if I knew I was going to die?
It's just mundane
later
shit.
in the same day.
They probably just don't offer them just any old thing.
Because, man, you could eat whatever you wanted because it's like you don't have to worry about getting fat or like getting sick or anything.
They're just running up the street to the local fucking restaurants that are outside the prison. So they're probably giving them a choice. You know?
I would think that like people that worked at the prison or people that cooked in the prison would be like, man, fuck this bitch. You know what I mean? Why would they like want to go all out to like make something taste nice for somebody that was getting executed?
I don't think they say anything. I think the cops just go down there and run down there, run
Did
down.
they
to
just
KFC,
go pick it up?
No, yeah, I think they just pick it up.
Probably.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was his last meal was KFC, and I think he had strawberry shortcake or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that was his last words. Kiss my ass. So like I said, in later years now, in 2012, they actually announced another kind of push to identify because I believe at least 6 of his victims were unidentified as of now. So they are still actively trying to like identify those 6 victims.
Must have been from out of state. Maybe they had something to do with that supposed accomplice that he had. Remember that guy Coral?
Yeah.
Coral.
Dean Coral, yeah.
Dean
Candyman.
Didn't he had that teenage gopher? Mm-hmm. Maybe it's a situation like that.
It does seem like that's because one of the dudes that got raped but he escaped. He said later on, even though he had been chloroformed and he was like unconscious some of the time, he did say that there was another like teenage to young adult male that was like there and that was like seemed like he was watching the festivities and there was like festivities and was like around in the area. So there have been ongoing theories that he might have had an accomplice.
Yeah,
and like I said, Gacy said that he did. It's like nobody buys anything that fucking Gacy said because everyone knows that he was full of shit. But
he might have had a Dean Coral style sidekick.
It could have been.
That
it
went
could
out
have been.
And was getting other guys and bringing them there, and eventually the sidekick was killed too. He's underneath the damn fucking floorboards. He was one of the.
It might have been like maybe one of the ones that was killed.
Yeah, it might have been
one of the accomplices early on. Like you
fucking-
said, like it seems like a Dean Coral situation.
Yeah, it might have been something like that. But he killed that kid too, and that kid was the one that got the other 5 unidentified ones.
Yeah.
Maybe that kid was like something from a juvie home or something.
Yeah. It does seem like that's probably what. And like I said, he might have like blackmailed that kid into the shit. It's like, hey, you just
probably how it started.
Yeah, go along with the shit or I'll kill you too.
And then he got sired of him and raped and killed him, put him underneath there to cover his tracks. And then it erased the identity of the other 5.
It wouldn't shock me. And like I said, this is the early to mid 70s. And, you know, he targeted teenage boys that were looking for work or, you know, looking for drugs or looking for porn or whatever. And
6 of them were probably the other 6 that were unidentified was probably one of them is at least one of them might have been his sidekick, and there was probably something from kind of like an criminal underground gang of fucking teenage kids, something like that. They were runaways, something like that.
Yeah.
Little underage drug dealers, something like that.
But yeah, the thing about Gacy too, and I think a lot of people probably know this, but while he was on death row, he started doing all those paintings. Like he did some of Jesus, he did some of like the 7 dwarfs. Yeah, he did a bunch of like Pogo the Clown, which are supremely creepy.
Yeah.
But
he was doing that shit on purpose too.
Well, for a while he was making, I don't know if he was making money directly off of them, but people were buying them.
No, they were paying him.
So
I think you have the right to sell your own art.
Well, I don't know, like nowadays, maybe back then you could, like nowadays, I'm not sure what the law is in the US. It might be different state to state. Because I know that in the UK, there was a thing where, I can't remember what murderer it was, but they made a thing where it's like, because he was like trying to write a book and like make all this money. Like, I'm going to write a book about, like, all the murders I did.
Yeah,
and then,
that's
like,
not the same as
and
property.
they were like, yeah, no, you're not going to do that. If any money comes from it, it has to go to, like, a victim fund.
That's profiting off your crime.
That's what I mean. I don't think you can do that anymore.
The thing is, though, is that in the American system, it wouldn't be profiting off a crime because selling a painting has nothing to do with your crime. That's how they're going to look at it in the law.
Well, like I said, it's probably different from state to state.
Yeah.
Because I feel like people did, like, buy them. I was reading this thing it was on Murderpedia, I think, and it was, like, this one guy that had gone to visit him a bunch of times, and he had actually bought one of his paintings, and he was even saying, it's like, I'm not really sure, like, where that money went to.
Probably went to a lawyer or went into his accountant that went to so he could buy candy off the fucking commissary. That's all. They can't buy anything that's not on that damn commissary list.
That's true. It's not like they can really, like,
They can't
do
buy
anything with the
so
money.
they bought candy with it.
It's not like they're living high on the hog or
he
anything on fucking death row.
Yeah, he fucking bought some damn sodas and some fucking potato chips and some cigarettes.
Yeah, probably.
Something like that.
Yeah, so this motherfucker got electrocuted in 1994. Last words, kiss my ass. That's super classy. So, how long has this show gone on?
Long time.
It's like, it's so late, you guys. All right, so we are going to... Are you ready to wrap it up?
What's that?
Are you ready to wrap it up?
Wrap that shit up.
All right, we're gonna...
Wrap it the fuck up.
I like really truncated the last part of this because we were really trying to... It's gone on for like so long. And
yeah,
it's like,
we got attacked by the cat and all kinds of
we
stuff.
got attacked by the cat. It's like way past midnight. We're getting like really, really tired and shit like that. So we decided we're going to wrap up the show on John Wayne Gacy. Hope you guys enjoyed it. You know how we do. We just like get drunk and start rambling and whatever.
It's not rambling. That was all fucking juicy, good
It was juicy, good information.
Yeah.
Even though I skipped a lot of stuff, but it's...
But it was just little technical shit they could see on Wikipedia if they wanted
Yeah,
to.
it's fine. So, hope you guys enjoyed episode 184. Remember, if you like the show, like, share, subscribe on all your social media. Remember, check us out on Instagram. That's a fairly new Instagram account, so we're trying to get everybody to follow us on there. Also, if you would like to financially support the show, it is much appreciated. Why is our fucking shit going blurry like every 2 seconds? It's
Don't worry about
it. Crazy. If you'd like to financially support the show, it'd be much appreciated. You can go to our Patreon page, patreon.com/13o'clockpodcast, or you can go to our blog, 13o'clockpodcast.wordpress.com, and there is a button in the sidebar that goes to a PayPal account if you would like to give a one-time donation. Also much appreciated. All used to improve the show and various other things.
You got that corona. You got that COVID.
Oh dear, he's got coronavirus.
I got fucking corona.
No, you don't.
Okay.
All right.
Shut it down.
So we will see you next time. Bye.